Hey guys, tonight we dive into the bureaucratic labyrinth of the Han Dynasty's postal system. Imagine you're a lowly clerk drowning in scrolls and seals, trying to send a message that could decide the fate of an empire. It's like trying to send an email during a server outage, but with more ink stains and fewer IT guys. And let's be honest, you probably won't survive this without a few yawns. History can be a snooze, but that's the point. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. It's always cool to see where you're tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stand in the dimly lit hall of the Imperial Palace, the air thick with the scent of sandalwood and the faint mustiness of old scrolls. A high-ranking official, his robes adorned with intricate embroidery, paces anxiously before you. "The barbarians are at the gates," he says, his voice tight with urgency. "We must send word to General Lee at once. The fate of the Empire hangs in the balance." You nod, your heart racing. As a clerk in the Han Dynasty's postal system, you're no stranger to pressure, but this is different. This message could mean the difference between victory and defeat, life and death for thousands. But sending a message, even one as crucial as this, is no simple task. The postal system, while impressive in its reach, is a labyrinth of procedures and protocols. You take a deep breath and begin the process. First, you must draft the message itself. The official dictates the contents, his words sharp and commanding. You transcribe them carefully onto a silk scroll, your brushstrokes precise. One mistake could alter the meaning entirely. Once the message is written, it must be sealed with the appropriate insignia. You reach for the jade seal, its weight reassuring in your hand. But wait, this is a military dispatch. Does it require the Emperor's personal seal? You hesitate, then decide to consult the regulations. You pull out a hefty tome, its pages yellowed with age. The Postal Codes and Procedures is a dense read, but you know it by heart. After a few moments, you find the relevant section. Messages of utmost urgency pertaining to military affairs shall bear the seal of the Minister of War. You nod to yourself and fetch the minister's seal from its locked cabinet. With a steady hand, you press it onto the scroll, leaving a crimson imprint. But you're not done yet. The message must be accompanied by a dispatch form detailing the sender-recipient priority level and estimated delivery time. You grab a blank form and begin filling it out. Sender Imperial Court, Chang'an. Recipient General Lee, Northern Frontier, priority. Urgent, estimated delivery. 3 days. Wait 3 days? Is that feasible? You recall that the postal system relies on a network of relay stations where horses and riders stand ready to carry messages across the empire. In theory, a message can travel up to 200 ili, about 100 kilometers per day. But in practice, delays are common. You decide to mark it as expedited, which should shave off some time. But even then, you're not sure if it will reach General Lee in time. As you complete the form, you remember another requirement: all dispatches must be logged in the central registry. You sigh and head to the registry room, where rows upon rows of shelves hold countless scrolls, each documenting a message sent or received. You locate the current logbook and make an entry date, time, sender, recipient priority, and a brief summary of the contents. Your handwriting is neat, but you're aware that any error could lead to confusion later. With the paperwork in order, you finally prepare to send the message. You wrap the scroll in a protective covering and place it in a leather satchel. Then you hand it to a courier, a young man with a determined look in his eyes. "Take this to the first relay station," you instruct. "Make sure it's handed off properly." He nods and dashes off, his footsteps echoing in the corridor. You watch him go, a mix of hope and anxiety swirling in your chest. The message is on its way, but the journey has only just begun. Through a series of relay stations, each with its own set of procedures and potential for delay, the message must traverse mountains, rivers, and vast plains to reach its destination. You can't help but wonder, will it arrive in time? Or will the bureaucratic machinery of the Han postal system prove too slow, too cumbersome for the urgency of the moment? As you turn back to your desk, you catch a glimpse of the official still pacing. He meets your gaze, and for a moment you share a silent understanding of the weight of your responsibilities. In the Han Dynasty, the postal system was a marvel of its time, connecting an empire that stretched over millions of square kilometers. Established during the reign of Emperor Wu, it featured a network of relay stations, spaced at regular intervals where fresh horses and riders awaited to speed messages along their way. This system allowed for relatively rapid communication across vast distances, a feat unmatched in the ancient world. Yet for all its ingenuity, the system was not without its flaws. The very procedures designed to ensure accuracy and accountability could also become obstacles, especially in times of crisis. A single misstepa, misplaced seal, and incorrectly filled form, a delay at a relay station could have dire consequences. And then there were the human elements. Corruption, incompetence, or simple fatigue could all derail the process. There are tales of messages being lost or delayed due to bribery, with couriers accepting payments to prioritize one dispatch over another. Others speak of exhausted riders falling asleep on their horses, missing their handoffs. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect is the debate among historians about the system's overall effectiveness. Some argue that the postal bureaucracy was a key factor in the Han Dynasty's ability to maintain control over its vast territories, facilitating the flow of information and commands. Others contend that the system's complexity often hindered timely communication, contributing to administrative inefficiencies. As you ponder these thoughts, you realize that the dispatch dilemma is more than just a historical curiosity. It's a reflection of the eternal struggle between order and chaos, between the need for structure and the desire for speed. In the end, the Han postal system, with all its triumphs and tribulations, stands as a testament to humanity's enduring quest to connect, to communicate, and to overcome the barriers of distance and time. But for now, you have other duties to attend to. The night is still young, and there are more messages to process, more forms to fill, more seals to apply. You take a deep breath and return to your desk, ready to face the next challenge in the bureaucratic labyrinth of the Han Dynasty's postal system. You're back at your desk, the ink on your fingers still tacky from the last dispatch. The courier's gone galloping off into the night with that urgent message for General Lee, and you're left with the hum of the palace settling around you. Creaking beams, the distant clatter of a guard's armor, the soft rustle of parchment as a breeze sneaks through a cracked window. You'd love to call it a night, maybe sneak a sip of that rice wine you've stashed under the desk, but the Han Dynasty's postal system doesn't sleep. Neither do you, apparently. A shadow falls over your workspace, and you look up to see Overseer Zhang looming there, his arms crossed, his mustache twitching like it's got a mind of its own. "Clerk," he says, voice low and gravelly, the logbook's a mess. "Fix it. And where's the tally for the relay station at Xi'an?" You bite back a groan. This is the chain of command in action. Everybody's got a boss, and everybody's got a problem to pass down the line. See, the postal system isn't just about scrolls and horses. It's a hierarchy, a living, breathing beast with more layers than a steamed dumpling. You're at the bottom, a clerk scratching out forms in the flickering glow of an oil lamp. Above you are the overseers like Zhang, who strut around with their fancy titles, Inspector of Dispatches or Master of the Relay Routes Making. Sure, every I is dotted, or whatever the Han equivalent is. Then there are the couriers, those wiry riders who think they're the real heroes because they get to feel the wind in their hair while you're stuck inhaling dust. And at the top, the Minister of War or some other bigwig who probably never sees the inside of a relay station but gets all the credit when things go right. You grab the logbook and start flipping through it, the parchment crinkling under your touch. Zhang's right, it's a mess. Someone's smudged the ink on yesterday's entries, and the courier tallies are missing half the signatures. You mutter a curse under your breath. What's next, a horse signing off on this? You joke to yourself, but Zhang's still hovering, so you keep it quiet. The process starts again. You rewrite the log, your brush gliding over the silk paper with that satisfying scritch-scratch sound. Every dispatch has to be accounted for, date, time rider route. You note the Shen relay stations tally 3 riders, 5 horses, 1 message delayed because a courier accidentally took a nap in a roadside tavern. Classic. You smirk at that one, it's the kind of thing you'd do if you weren't stuck behind this desk. But here's where it gets tricky. You can't just fix the log and call it a day. No, no. Every change has to be approved by Zhang Hole. Probably want to double check it with the relay overseer, who might then kick it up to the regional supervisor if he's feeling extra petty. It's like playing a game of telephone, except instead of whispers, it's a stack of scrolls and a lot of grumpy men in robes. You hand the revised log to Zhang, and he squints at it like he's deciphering an ancient prophecy. "This'll do?" He grunts, then shuffles off to harass someone else. You lean back, the wooden chair creaking under you, and take a moment to breathe. The hierarchy's a headache, sure, but it's also what keeps this whole operation from collapsing into chaos. Back in the day around like 200 BCE under Emperor Gaozus, early reign, the Han started formalizing this system, setting up ranks and roles to manage an empire that was growing faster than a bamboo shoot in spring. That's your mainstream fact. A structured chain of command, from clerks to couriers to overseers, was the backbone of a postal network that spanned thousands of LI. But it's not all serious business. There's a quirky little rumor floating around the barracks. Couriers used to tie red ribbons to their satchels for priority messages. But some clever writers figured out that red dye was rare, so they'd slap on a ribbon for every dispatch just to look important. True or not, you can picture it some smug courier trotting into a relay station satchel, blazing red while the overseer rolls his eyes and mutters about budget cuts. And then there's the big question historians love to chew on. Did this rigid hierarchy actually make the system better? Some say it ensured accountability. Every scroll tracked, every writer checked. Others argue it bogged everything down, turning a simple message into a week-long ordeal of approvals and arguments. You're not sure where you land on that debate, but right now, with Zhang breathing down your neck and a dozen more forms to fill, you're leaning toward bogged down. You glance at the courier roster next. A new rider's due in from the south, some kid named Wei, who's all energy and no sense according to the gossip. You'll have to brief him, make sure he doesn't gallop off with the wrong satchel or worse, flirt with the stablemaster's daughter, and delay the next handoff. It's always something with these guys. Last week, a courier tried to bribe you with a sesame cake to fudge his hours. You took the cake, obviously, but still reported him. Principal's right. The lamp flickers, casting long shadows across the room, and you rub your eyes. The hierarchy is a tangled mess full of quirks and egos, but it's your mess. You're part of this machine, grinding along with every seal you stamp and every log you balance. It's not glamorous. No one's writing poems about the clerk who kept the scrolls in order, but it's yours. And as the night stretches on, you settle back into the rhythm, the scratch of the brush, the rustle of paper, the distant hoofbeats carrying the Empire's words into the dark. Just as you're about to take a well-deserved break, a messenger bursts into the room out of breath, his robes askew from what must have been a frantic ride. He thrusts a scroll into your hands, panting urgent dispatch from the frontier. You unfurl it, and your heart skips a beat. General Li requests reinforcements. Jiangnu raiders spotted near the Great Wall. Oh, great. This isn't a routine report. This is the kind of message that could mean life or death for an entire garrison. You snap into action, knowing every minute counts. But first, the forms. You groan inwardly. Even in the face of a potential invasion, the Han postal system demands its due. You can almost hear the Empire's motto, "No message shall pass without proper documentation." You pull out a fresh stack of forms, each one a testament to the bureaucracy's love affair with paperwork. The air smells of ink and old silk, and the flickering lamp casts a warm glow over your desk. But there's no comfort in it tonight. This is going to be a battle of its own. First, you grab the dispatch record form, a long scroll of bamboo slips tied together with silk thread, clunky and awkward to handle. You dip your brush into the inkwell, the bristles glistening black, and begin to write. Date the 15th day of the 8th lunar month in the reign of Emperor Wu. Sender General Li Guang, stationed at the northern frontier. Recipient the Minister of War in Chang'an. Content summary: urgent request for reinforcements due to Xiongnu activity. Route via the northern relay stations. Priority Express. But wait, you can't just write Priority Express. There's a specific code for that. You rummage through a drawer, pulling out a small booklet of postal regulations. Flipping through it, you find the section on message classification for military emergencies. Use the Swift as wind designation marked with a red seal. You make a note to grab the red ink later. Next, you tackle the courier assignment form written on silk, that's smooth but prone to smudging. You list the available couriers, Wong the Swift reliable but currently nursing a sprained ankle, Lee the strong fast but directionally challenged, and Zhang the new guy eager but untested. You hesitate, then assign Wong. Better a limping veteran than a rookie who might end up in the wrong province. As you write, clerk Wong, your fellow sufferer in this paper-pushing purgatory, leans over from his desk. Another urgent one, huh? Bet you'll be here all night with the forms? He chuckles, a mix of sympathy and exhaustion in his voice. I swear, by the time we finish all this, the message will be obsolete. Urgent. The Xiongnu have invaded last month. You smirk, dipping your brush again. At least we're thorough. Imagine if we sent this without the proper seals, heads would roll literally. It's a grim joke, but not far from the truth. In the Han Dynasty, bureaucratic errors could lead to exile or worse, especially if they botch something as critical as a military dispatch. No pressure, right? With the courier form done, you move to the route authorization slip. This one requires listing every relay station the message will pass through. You unroll a map tracing the path with your finger, Chang'an to Tongguan, then north to Yanmen Pass and onward. Each station needs to be noted along with estimated travel times. It's mind-numbing but vital. Without this, the message could get lost or delayed. As you work, you can help, but marvel at the system scale. The Han postal network is a beast with relay stations every 30 lie about 15 kilometers along the major roads. They're not just for messages, they handle goods travelers and the occasional bigwig. It's a marvel of organization built on the bones of the Qin Dynasty system and expanded to keep the empire humming. But all that efficiency rests on paperwork like this, tracking every scroll that moves through the network. Still, you wonder if it's overkill. Some argue this meticulous documentation prevents fraud and keeps the empire stable. Others say it's a bloated mess bogging down urgent communications with red tape. You see both sides. Without these checks, chaos could reign, but you've watched messages stall for days over a missing stamp. Right now, with General Lee waiting, you're leaning toward bloated mess. You shake off the thought and grab a bamboo stick for the tally. With a small knife, you carve the dispatch number into it, then split it lengthwise, creating two halves with matching inscriptions. One half goes with the message, the other stays here. When the message arrives, the recipient sends back their half, and if they match, delivery is confirmed. It's a clever trick, ancient two-factor authentication. While you whittle bamboo shavings curling onto your desk, you recall a tidbit from training. Early tallies were jade or bronze for big deal messages, but someone figured out bamboo was cheaper and just as good. You chuckle, picturing a thrifty official pitching it. Why waste jade when we've got bamboo? Out the ears, now the seals. You open a wooden box revealing your collection: jade for imperial decrees, bronze for military orders, wooden ones for routine stuff. This is military, so you pick the bronze seal engraved with a tiger strength and urgency in one. You heat wax over the lamp, drip it onto the scroll, and press the seal in. The tiger's crisp outline hardens in the wax. Then you stamp each form with the transmit mark. In red ink, the rhythmic thunk, a small comfort. Disaster strikes when you spot a mistake on the route. Slip Yanmen Pass instead of Yumen Pass. Groaning, you grab fresh silk and start over. Time's ticking, but accuracy trumps speed here one. Wrong turn, and this message could end up in the desert. You pause, noting the materials. The message scroll is fine. Silk. Luxurious and fitting for its weighty content. While the forms are on bamboo slips or early paper mulberry bark and hemp, still a work in progress. Paper's the future, they say, but for now it's a mix of old and new, smooth and splintery. Finally, you finish. You stack the scroll, tally half, and forms tying them with a silk cord. Wang the Swift appears, ankle-wrapped but ready. Good to go, you ask, handing over the package. As good as he'll get, he says, tucking it into his satchel. He limps out, mounts his horse, and gallops off, hooves echoing in the night. You sigh, but relief is fleeting. Overseer Zhang drops another stack of forms on your desk. Next dispatch, he grunts. It's another urgent one, this time from the south. As you reach for your brush, you can't help but think about your message hurtling through the relay stations where speed and chaos rule. But that's another story. For now, the scratch of bristles on silk pulls you back to the grind. As the sun dips lower, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, the relay station begins to wind down, or at least it tries to. The clatter of hooves fades as the last of the evening couriers depart their horses, kicking up dust that lingers in the air like a gritty haze. You're still chuckling over the image of General Wei unrolling a love letter instead of his troop positions when a new sound cuts through the evening. Calm, the unmistakable thunder of hooves returning at a gallop. It's the young courier, the nervous one with the twitchy hands. His horse skids to a stop in the courtyard and he practically tumbles off, clutching the satchel like it's a live snake. "It's wrong," he shouts, his voice cracking. "I got the wrong one." The head clerk, who'd only just started to relax, leaps to his feet with a groan that could wake the ancestors. "Let me see," that the clerk snaps, snatching the satchel and ripping it open. He pulls out the scroll, unrolls it, and sure enough, it's the military dispatch meant for General Wei. The courier must have realized his mistake halfway to his destination and turned back. "Well," the clerk mutters, "at least one of you has some sense." The room buzzes with a mix of relief and exasperation. The overseer, a pompous man with a mustache that looks like it's trying to escape his face, strides over his robe, swishing with every step. "This is unacceptable," he barks. "Do you know what this could have cost us?" The Minister of War doesn't take kindly to delay sore poetry. The young courier shrinks under the reprimand, mumbling, "I thought it felt light. Love letters don't weigh much, do they?" You stifle a laugh, but the clerk doesn't bother hiding his grin. "No, lad," he says, clapping the boy on the shoulder. "They don't. Next time, check before you ride." While the clerk scrambles to dispatch a new rider with the correct satchel, you wander over to the stables where the horses are being brushed down for the night. The stable hand, a grizzled old man with a face like weathered leather, nods at you. "Heard about the mix-up?" he rasps, not looking up from his work. "Happens more than you think. Last month, some fool sent a tax report to a merchant instead of the treasury. Took 3 days to sort that mess out." You raise an eyebrow. "Doesn't anyone check the satchels?" He snorts a sound halfway between a laugh and a cough. "Supposed to. But when you've got 10 riders coming in at once and the overseer's yelling about schedules, things slip. Always have, always will." He gestures to a wooden pole in the corner of the courtyard, the message pole you'd heard about. "See that? They miss it half the time, too. Speed's the game, but speed makes fools of us all." The stable hand's words linger as you watch the station settle into a quieter rhythm. The relay system is a marvel of efficiency, designed to carry messages across the empire at a pace that would have baffled earlier dynasties. Stations like this one, spaced roughly 30 li apart, keep the Han connected emperors to generals, merchants to officials, lovers to their beloveds. But it's a machine powered by people, and people are gloriously, hilariously fallible. By now, the third rider has galloped off with the military dispatch, and the young courier is slinking away still red-faced. The head clerk approaches you, wiping ink-stained hands on his robe. "Well, get it sorted," he says, though he doesn't sound entirely convinced. The general might never know, unless that noblewoman writes back asking for more battle plans. You grin. Maybe she'll send him a poem instead. "Don't tempt fate," he replies, but there's a twinkle in his eye. "We've had enough poetry for one day." As you prepare to leave, the station feels less like a madhouse and more like a living, breathing thing, a place where order and chaos wrestle daily and chaos occasionally wins. The mix-up will become a tale told over millet wine, a cautionary yarn for new couriers. Check your satchel or the general gets a love letter. And somewhere out there, a noblewoman is probably still puzzling over troop movements, wondering if her lover's taken up strategy instead of sonnets. The relay station fades into the dusk behind you, its lanterns flickering like fireflies. It's a small piece of the Empire's vast network, imperfect and chaotic, but somehow still holding together. Tomorrow, the dance will start again. Horses, couriers, clerks, and all, and who knows? Maybe next time they'll get it right. You find yourself in the bustling central postal hub of Changjian, the beating heart of the Han Empire's vast communication network. The air is heavy with the scent of ink and aged parchment, mingling with the faint sweat of clerks who've been at their posts since sunrise. Scrolls teeter in precarious stacks on every surface, each one a vital message from some distant corner of the Empire North, south, east, or west, waiting to be deciphered, sorted, and dispatched. The room buzzes with life brushes scratch against silk and bamboo voices murmur in a dozen different tones, and every so often someone barks an order for more ink or courier to saddle up. It's midday and the heat presses in despite the shuttered windows making the oil lamps flicker as they cast their dim glow over your desk. You're holding a scroll that arrived this morning from the southern frontier land of steamy jungles and apparently maddening dialects. The characters sprawl across the silk in a script that's almost recognizable but not quite. They twist and curl in unfamiliar ways, some archaic, others adorned with strange flourishes that leave you squinting in confusion. Your job is to process this, to turn it into something the court can understand, but right now it feels like trying to read the wind. You tilt the scroll toward the lamplight, your ink-stained fingers smudging the still tacky lines as you puzzle over the text. Is that river or mountain? And what's this about a three-headed dragon? You blink hard, wondering if the heat's playing tricks on your eyes, having trouble. Clerk Wong leans over your shoulder, his breath carrying a whiff of garlic and millet wine. He's a northerner like you with about as much grasp of southern tongues as a camel has of swimming. I think it's Yue, you say, pointing to a particularly tangled character. Or maybe by Yue, it's like they're writing in code. Wong snorts, settling back into his chair with a groan of wood. They might as well be. The Empire's too big for one language to hold it together. You can't expect some rice farmer in Yue to scribble like a Chang'an scholar. You frown, tracing the odd strokes with your finger. But the written language is supposed to be universal. That's why we have the script. Supposed to be Wong, says nodding. But this half the characters are ancient, and the grammar's a jumble. It's chaos on silk. He's right, and it's more than just a headache. It's a snag in the postal system's lifeline. The Han Empire stretches across deserts, steppes, mountains, and jungles, binding together people who speak everything from the courts. Classical Chinese to the Baiyu dialects of the south and the guttural tongues of the Xiongnu in the north. When a message like this lands on your desk, it can sit there for hours or days waiting for someone to unravel its meaning. In a network where every moment counts, that delay could mean missed taxes, late reinforcements, or worse. Remember that dispatch from the west we thought was a bandit raid? Wong says, a smirk tugging at his lips. Turned out they just wanted more soy sauce. Nearly sent a garrison over a condiment. You laugh, but it's a sharp reminder of how easily things go awry. Misread orders have sent armies marching to the wrong borders, and garbled tax reports have left provinces scrambling. The Empire's linguistic patchwork, stitched together by bureaucracy and willpower phrase at the edges when words fail. Still, there's a solution tucked away in this very building. You glance toward a small door at the back of the room, leading to the translator's quarters, a cramped, incense-scented nook where the real magic happens. The Han Dynasty employs linguists, skilled officials who wrestle with the empires, many voices turning dialects and foreign tongues into the crisp, formal Chinese demanded by the court. They're the glue that keeps this sprawling system from falling apart. You'll get Master Li, you say, rising and threading your way through the maze of desks. Master Li is the veteran of the translators, a wiry old man with a beard that trails like a comet's tail and eyes that gleam with quiet humor. He's been at this longer than you've been alive, and if anyone can crack this scroll, it's him. You rap on the door, and a gravelly enter beckons you inside. The air here is cooler, laced with sandalwood and the musty scent of old books. Master Li looks up from his own scroll brush, hovering mid-stroke. Another southern puzzle, he asks, already reaching for the silk in your hand. You nod, passing it over. I think it's Yue. There's something about a dragon, maybe. Master Li unrolls it, his gaze darting over the characters with practiced ease. A dry chuckle escapes him. Not a dragon, lad. It's prosperity. They use an old variant down there. And this, he taps a characteristic river, its tribute. They're reporting a good harvest and asking for more carts. You stare relief washing over you alongside a flush of embarrassment. So no three-headed dragons. Not today, he says, grinning. Though it'd liven things up, wouldn't it? He dips his brush in ink and starts transcribing his strokes swift and sure. The room quiets, filled only with the soft scrape of bristles on silk, and you watch as the muddled text transforms into something clear and orderly. As he works, you think about the bigger picture. The Han Empire is a tapestry of languages. Classical Chinese reigns in the capital, but beyond its walls, regional dialects thrive, some so distinct, they're practically separate tongues. Scholars debate how unified it all was. Some argue the written script tied the empire together, a shared code across vast distances. Others say the provinces clung to their own ways, resisting the court's linguistic grip. Here in this postal hub, you see both sides, the struggle and the system that fights to overcome it. Master Li finishes handing you the transcribed scroll, the ink still wet and gleaming. There you go. No dragons, just grain. You take it with a small bow. Thank you, Master Li. We'd be lost without you. He waves it off. Language is like water, it flows where it wants and no wall can stop it. We just steer it as best we can. He pauses, then adds, in this postal system, we're the ones wading in the stream trying not to drown. You smile, the weight of the day lifting slightly. Maybe I should learn Yue myself, or retire. Wang pipes up from the doorway, having trailed you in. Less ink on my hands that way. Master Li laughs, a raspy sound. Retirement's tempting, but who'd sort out the dragons then? The three of you share a chuckle, a brief respite amid the grind. But duty calls, and you carry the scroll back to your desk. It's stamped, sealed, and handed to a courier who bolts out the door, hooves, pounding the courtyard stones as he rides off into Chang'an's crowded streets. You slump back in your chair watching him go. Another message saved from the brink, but you wonder how many others slip through the cracks, warped or lost in the Empire's chorus of voices. There's a fragile beauty to it, thought, this sprawling web held together by patient skill and a little laughter. And as the normal hum of the postal hub resumes around you, you feel a flicker of pride. Today, at least, the words made it through. You spend the next few days moving like a shadow through the postal hub, your senses sharpened by suspicion. The clatter of tally sticks, the rustle of silk scrolls, the sharp tang of ink in the air. It all feels different now, laced with a tension you can't shake. Clerk Zhao's threat lingers in your mind, but it's the Empire's lifeline you're fighting for, not just your own skin. You've got the note to lay the Northern Dispatch. Double the usual fee tucked safely in your robe, a fragile piece of evidence that could either save you or doom you. The question is, what's your next move? A web of deception. You start by watching Zhao more closely, noting his habits. He's meticulous, but not in the way a good clerk should be. He lingers too long over certain dispatches, his brush hesitating before marking them sent. You catch him slipping a scroll into his sleeve, once his twitchy eye darting around to see if anyone noticed. You pretend to be engrossed in your own work, but your heart thumps like a war drum. This isn't just about one missing message anymore, it's a pattern. A web of deceit spun right under the overseer's nose. One evening you stay late again, the hub nearly deserted. You slip into the dispatch room where the outgoing satchels are stacked, ready for the couriers at dawn. The air is heavy with the scent of leather and wax seals. You sift through the satchels bound for the northern frontier fingers, brushing over the smooth silk of military orders. One satchel feels lighter than it should. You untie it and your breath catches. Half the scrolls are missing, replaced with blank strips of bamboo. Someone's tampered with it, and you'd bet your last coin it's Zhao. The confrontation. You decide it's time to corner him. The next morning you catch Zhao alone in the archives, his back to you as he sorts through a pile of scrolls. The room is dim, the flickering lamplight casting his shadow long and jagged across the shelves. You clear your throat, and he jumps, nearly dropping a scroll. Busy morning, Zhao, you ask, keeping your tone casual. He turns his smile tight. Just keeping the record straight. You should try it sometime, less trouble that way. You step closer, lowering your voice. I found a satchel headed north. Half empty. Care to explain? His eye twitches violently and he grips the edge of a shelf. You're imagining things. Overwork, maybe. You should rest. You pull the note from your robe and hold it up just out of his reach. This says otherwise. Delay the northern dispatch. Sound familiar. For a moment, he freezes his face, a mask of panic. Then he lunges for the note, but you're faster stepping back. Who's paying you, Zhao? Who's worth risking the Empire for? He recovers quickly, his oily grin returning. You think you're clever, don't you, digging where you shouldn't? Let me make you an offer better than mangoes this time. He reaches into his robe and pulls out a small jade figurine, a grinning monkey carved with uncanny detail. Take it. Walk away. You'll live longer. You snort, pushing the figurine back toward him. A monkey? Really? You must think him as spineless as you are? His grin vanishes, replaced by a snarl. You're a fool. You have no idea what's at stake or who's watching. Uncovering the stakes. He storms out, leaving you with more questions than answers. But his words gnaw at you, who's watching you spend the next few hours piecing it together. Corruption in the Han Dynasty wasn't rare. Historical records brim with tales of officials skimming taxes or selling favors. The postal system, though, was supposed to be untouchable, a sacred thread binding the empire. Yet here it is, fraying under greed. Scholars still debate how bad it got. Some say it was petty theft, others that it weakened the dynasty's grip, letting chaos creep in. You're starting to think the latter. You dig into older records, cross-referencing delayed dispatches with Zhao shifts. The pattern grows clearer: messages to the frontier, the capital. Even the Emperor's own relays, dozens stalled or lost, all tied to Zhao and a handful of other clerks. And then you find it, a sealed scroll hidden behind a loose panel in the archives marked with the insignia of a powerful merchant guild. Inside, a list of payments, dates, and cryptic instructions. Bury the edict. Sink the relay. It's a goldmine, proof of a conspiracy reaching beyond the hub. Maybe beyond Chang'an itself. A dangerous choice. That night you sit at your desk, the scroll and note spread before you. The hub is silent, save for the distant howl of a night wind. You've got enough to take to the overseer, maybe even the magistrate, but Zhao's warning echoes forces bigger than you can imagine. If this guild's involved, they've got deep pockets and long arms. Reporting it could expose the rot, but it might also get you silenced. You could destroy the evidence, take Zeyu's bribe, and live quietly. Or you could keep digging, risking everything to cut out the corruption at its root. You trace the monkey figurine's outline in your mind, a wry smile tugging at your lips. A bribe that absurd almost deserves respect. Almost. But you're not here to play it safe. The postal system's the Empire's pulse, and you'll be damned if you let it bleed out on your watch. You gather the evidence, steel yourself, and head for the overseer's quarters. The shadows stretch long behind you, and every creak of the floorboards feels like a warning. Whatever comes next, you're in too deep to turn back now. You stand in the dimly lit hallway outside Overseer Chen's quarters, the evidence of corruption clutched tightly in your hand, a crumpled note, a tampered satchel, and a hidden scroll. The weight of your discovery presses against your chest, your heart thudding with every breath. The corridor is silent, save for the faint flicker of lamplight casting shadows on the walls, amplifying the gravity of your next step. Once I knock, there's no turning back. You think steeling yourself before rapping firmly on the heavy wooden door. The door creaks open, revealing Overseer Chen, hunched over his desk surrounded by scrolls and maps. His stern face etched with years of service lifts to meet your gaze, his brow furrowing in irritation. "What is it, clerk?" He grumbles, his voice rough as gravel. "This better be worth my time." You step inside, the scent of ink and stale tea filling the air, and place the evidence on his desk with trembling hands. "Sir, I've found proof of corruption in the postal hub. It's bigger than I feared." His eyes narrow, suspicion replacing annoyance. "Corruption. That's a bold claim. Show me." You point to each item in turn. "This note, clerk, Zhao slipped it to me, offering a bribe to delay a dispatch." This satchel had scrolls swapped for blanks, and this scroll hidden in the archives lists payments from a merchant guild with orders to sabotage messages. Overseer Chen examines the evidence, his fingers tracing the cryptic words bury the edict. Sync the relay, his expression darkening. This could unravel the entire system, he mutters. If it's true. It is, sir, you say, your voice steady despite your nerves. We have to act. He nods, jaw tight. We will, but carefully. The guild has power money connections. We need more proof, and we need to know who's involved. Before you can reply, a courier bursts in, breathless. Sir, an imperial dispatch arrives tomorrow. For the northern frontier, it's urgent. Chen's eyes widen, meeting yours in alarm. The Emperor's own words. If they tamper with that, it's our chance you interject. We can catch them in the act. He agrees, resolve hardening his features. You'll handle it as usual. My men will watch. If Zhao moves well, have him. The trap. The next morning, the postal hub hums with activity, but a tense undercurrent runs through you. The Emperor's dispatch sits on your desk, its dragon-sealed silk a symbol of its weight. You process it with precision, every movement deliberate while stealing glances at Clerk Zhao. His twitchy eye betrays his nerves, sweat glistening on his brow as he fumbles with his work. You assign the dispatch to a disguised courier of Chen's trusted men and watch him ride off. The trap is set, but the real test looms ahead. The confrontation. That evening the hub quiets, and you linger under the pretense of paperwork. Footsteps echo slow, deliberate, and Zhao appears in the doorway, flanked by two rough-looking men. Your stomach drops. This wasn't the plan. You've been meddling. Zhao sneers, his voice venomous. I warned you. You rise scanning for Chen's men, but the shadows are empty. What do you want? The dispatch, he snaps, stepping closer. Where is it gone? You reply, forcing bravado. Too late. His eye twitches and one thug grabs you, slamming you against the wall. Pain flares as Zhao brandishes a dagger. The guild sees everything, even Chen's office. Last chance. Before you can respond, shouts erupt, and Overseer Chen storms in with armed guards. Seize them, he roars. The thugs are overpowered, and Zhao's fury turns to panic as he's bound. Slumping against the wall, you catch your breath. Chen approaches. You all right? I thought you turned, you rasp. He smirks faintly. No, we needed them to bite. You gave us the proof, the aftermath. Zhao and his men are hauled away, the evidence secured. Chen vows to pursue the guild, but you know their reach is vast. Alone later, you stare at the dispatch safe for now. The system's fragility gnaws at you. Yet Chen's words linger as he claps your shoulder. The postal system lives because of people like you. A flicker of hope stirs. Maybe it can endure if you keep fighting. The morning sun barely crests the rooftops as you trudge back to the postal hub, the old scrolls words still rattling around in your head. Express a lanes, you mutter, kicking a pebble down the dusty path. It's absurd, brilliant, but absurd. A system where urgent messages could skip the slog of stamps and signatures. You can already hear the overseers scoffing, their beards bristling with indignation. And yet the more you think about it, the more it gnaws at you. If people are already finding ways to dodge the rules, why not harness that chaos into something useful? You push through the hubs, creaky doors, the familiar hum of shuffling papers and low grumbles greeting you. Clerk Wang's already at his station, peeling a bulb of garlic with the focus of a sculptor. He catches your eye and smirks. You look like you've seen a ghost, or a good idea. Maybe both, you say, dropping onto the bench beside him. I found something last night, an old proposal to speed things up. Fewer forms, faster routes. It got rejected, of course. Wang snorts, popping a garlic clove into his mouth. Of course it did. The higher-ups love their piles of silk. Keeps them warm in winter. You grin, but your mind's elsewhere. What if we didn't fight the bypasses? What if we learned from them? He stops chewing, squinting at you. You're serious, aren't you? You want to turn merchant loose bribes into policy. Not the bribes, you say quickly, though you can't help a chuckle. The ingenuity, the silk traders, riders, the ghost routes, there's something there. The system's choking Wong. Maybe we can loosen the knot. He leans back, crossing his arms. You're dreaming, my friend. But ill bite. What's your grand plan? Testing the waters over the next few days, you start small. You watch the couriers more closely, not to catch them out, but to understand. There's old Lee, a grizzled rider with a limp, who somehow always delivers his satchels a day early. You corner him at the stables one evening, the air thick with hay and horse sweat. Lie, you say, leaning against a post. How do you do it? Your route's the same as everyone else's, but you're never late. He squints at you, then spits into the dirt. You're not here to snitch, are you? No snitching, you promise, holding up your hands. Just curious. He grunts, then jerks his head toward the horizon. I don't stop at every relay. Skip the ones that don't matter, ride straight through. Horses don't care about paperwork. You blink. That's a loud. Lee laughs, a dry, raspy sound. A loud, numbered effective yes. Been doing it for years. No one's complained yet. You file that away, a little spark igniting. Skipping relay sets bold, risky, but it works. Later, you overhear a merchant bragging about sending decoy satchels to clog the system, while his real messages slip through on private riders. It's sneaky, borderline unethical, but you can't deny the cleverness. A modest proposal. That night, you sit at your desk, ink pooling under your brush as you scribble notes. You're no reformer, not yet, but you can't shake the idea of testing something. A trial run, maybe? One route, one rule change. What if urgent military dispatches skipped a step, or tax reports got a dedicated rider? You sketch out a plan, fewer checkpoints for critical messages, a fast track of sorts. It's not the chaos of bribes or ghost riders, but it's a start. The next day, you pitch it to Wong over a shared pot of tea. He listens, swirling the leaves in his cup, then smirks. You're mad. The overseer'll have your head. Maybe you admit. But think about it. If it works, we're heroes. If it fails, we blame the ghost riders. He laughs loud enough to draw stares. Fine. I'm in. But you're writing the report when it all burns down. The first step. You spend the week gathering evidence, tracking the fastest deliveries, noting where the system bends without breaking. You even chat up a silk trader servant who admits their private couriers use shortcuts through the hills paths the official maps ignore. It's a patchwork of half-formed ideas, but it's something. By week's end, you've got a rough proposal, a single express route from Chang'an to the northern frontier reserved for urgent military orders. No bribes, no unofficial riders, just a streamlined path-cutting 2 relays. You slide it under the overseer's door after dark heart-pounding. It's not much, but it's a crack in the wall. The waiting game days pass. You half expect a summons, a reprimand, maybe a public flogging. Instead, there's silence until one morning Wang shoves a scroll in your face, grinning like a fox. They're trying it, he says. Your mad little plan. 1 route, 1 month. You stare at him stunned. You're joking. Nope. Courier left this morning. No extra stop, straight shot. We'll see if it works. You exhale, a mix of relief and dread washing over you. It's not a revolution yet, but it's a step. And as you watch the hub bustle around you, the clatter of seals and the shuffle of silk, you feel a strange thrill. The system's a beast, sure, but maybe, just maybe, you're learning how to tame it. The Empire's still a mess. But for the first time, you think you might be able to carve out a piece of it that makes sense. You're still standing there, the courier's dusty satchel in hand, basking in the glow of your little triumph. The express dispatch made it in record time, 2 days instead of the usual 5. The general's barking orders already, and the clerks around you are whispering about how you've just rewritten the rulebook. For a moment, you feel like a hero, like one of those legendary Han couriers who'd ride through storms to deliver a single scroll. But then reality creeps in, as it always does. Wang's grinning at you, his skepticism temporarily shelved. Well, you pulled it off. Don't get too full of yourself, thought. There's still plenty of time for this to go sideways. You roll your eyes, but he's not wrong. The hub's buzzing with excitement. but Inspector Gaius' words linger like a stubborn fog. Unintended consequences, he'd said, all cryptic and ominous. What does that even mean? You're just trying to make things faster, not unravel the empire. Still, you can shake the feeling that you've kicked a hornet's nest. By noon, the fallout starts. A runner bursts in sweat-streaked and wide-eyed, clutching a stack of fresh dispatch requests. They're piling up, High wheezes. Every outpost heard about the express route. Now they all want their messages bumped to the front of the line. You groan. Of course, the Han postal system's been chugging along for decades. Some say it's one of the oldest in the world, stitching together an empire bigger than you can wrap your head around. Military orders, tax tallies, even the occasional love letter from some homesick official, all of it, funneled through hubs like yours. And now, thanks to your bright idea, everyone wants a piece of the fast lane. You glance at the pile. It's a mess scrolls stamped with urgent red seals mixed with what looks suspiciously like a governor's grocery list. This is what I get for trying to help you mutter, pinching the bridge of your nose. Wong snickers. Told you. Fix one thing, break three more. Classic bureaucracy. You're about to snap back when Inspector Gao reappears like a storm cloud on legs. He doesn't even bother with a greeting, just strides over and plants himself in front of your desk. I hear your express route's a hit. He says, his tone dripping with something that's definitely not praise. Too much of a hit, perhaps? You force a smile. Yes, sir, it's popular. We're just working out the kinks. He narrows his eyes. Kinks. This isn't a toy clerk. The system's designed to keep order, not cater to every impatient fool with a seal and a scroll. What happens when your express riders burn out? Or when a critical message gets lost because you've skipped the relays? You open your mouth, then close it. He's got a point and you hate it. The relays, those endless checkpoints where couriers swap horses and scrolls get stamped, aren't just red tape. They're the backbone of control, making sure nothing slips through the cracks. Speeding things up might have sounded clever, but now you're wondering if you've traded reliability for a quick win. He'll figure it out, you say, though it sounds more like a plea than a promise. Gao doesn't blink. You'd better. The minister's watching. One mistake and this experiment's over along with your career. He sweeps out, leaving you staring at the growing pile of requests, your head spinning. The express route worked too well, apparently, and now you're drowning in its success. You can already hear the overseers grumbling about upstart clerks and reckless changes. Meanwhile, the couriers are muttering about extra shifts, and the relay stations you bypassed are probably drafting angry petitions. Wang slides over, peering at the chaos. So, what's the plan, a genius? You sigh, slumping back in your chair. I don't know. Maybe I should have stuck to sorting tax reports. He laughs, a low, easy sound that cuts through the tension. Too late for that. You've got the Empire's attention now. Better hope the next dispatch doesn't end up in a ditch. You manage a weak chuckle, but your mind's racing. The Han Dynasty's postal system was built to last, a marvel of organization in a world of chaos. And here you are tinkering with it like it's your personal sandbox. Did you make it better? Or did you just light a match under it? As the sun dips lower, casting golden streaks across the hub, you start sorting through the requests. One step at a time, you tell yourself. But deep down, you know this isn't the end. The inspector's watching the systems creaking, and your little victory's starting to feel like the calm before the storm. What happens next? Well, that's a story for another night. For now, you've got a pile of scrolls and a headache to match. Sleep. Tight, assuming you can. You find yourself standing at the heart of a bustling relay station, the air thick with the scent of hay and the earthy musk of horses. The rhythmic clatter of hooves on packed earth mingles with the murmurs of clerks and the occasional shout of a station master, trying to keep the chaos in check. Dust swirls in the golden light of the setting sun, painting the scene in a warm, hazy glow. It's like stepping into the ancient world's version of a busy airport terminal, except with more horsepower and fewer overpriced snacks. Couriers gallop in their horses, slick with sweat and snorting from the hard ride. They hop off with a practiced swagger, tossing their satchels to the waiting clerks. Fresh horses are trotted out their coats, shining like they've just stepped out of a grooming salon, ready to carry the next rider off into the horizon. The clerks move like a well-oiled machine, sorting scrolls, stamping documents, and making sure every message keeps moving. The air buzzes with the jingle of harnesses, the rustle of parchment, and the faint whiff of roasting meat drifting from the kitchen. You can practically taste the dust and sweat its gritty, real, and oddly comforting. Meet Leeway the clerk with ink-stained fingers and a frown that could scare off a tax collector. He's the guardian of accuracy, his sharp eyes scanning every scroll like it's a sacred relic. Then there's Jong Jun the courier everyone calls almost on time Jung. Has fast blazing fast except when it comes to actually arriving when he's supposed to. Has the guy you'd bet on in a race but never trust with a dinner reservation. One hectic afternoon, a dispatch arrives with the Emperor's seal serious business. Lai Wei cradles it like it's made of glass, but in the relay station shuffle, it ends up in the wrong satchel. Zhang Jun grabs it and bolts, heading completely the wrong way. The station erupts, shouts, waving arms, pure pandemonium. Just as they're about to send a rescue rider, Zhang strolls back in, grinning like a kid caught sneaking sweets. "Forgot my lucky charm," he says, flashing a little jade pendant. Turns out that pit stop let him spot the mix-up and fix it. Disaster averted all thanks to a forgetful courier and a bit of dumb luck. You've got to laugh, sometimes the Empire runs on grit guts and a whole lot of goof-ups. Here's the big historical nugget: the Han Dynasty's postal system was a jaw-dropping feat, stretching over 10,000 miles to knit together an empire bigger than your wildest road trip dreams. It shuttled orders from the Emperor battlefield, updates from generals, and even the odd love letter from homesick soldiers. These relay stations were the gears that kept it humming, running day and night, like the ancient world's express delivery service. Makes you wonder how they pulled it off without GPS or a decent coffee break. Now for a fun little twist, these stations weren't just mail hubs, they doubled as roadside inns. Tired merchants and officials could crash there, swapping stories over bowls of steaming millet porridge. Picture it: a grizzled trader from the West spinning yarns about Silk Roads while a scholar from the capital pontificates over his soup. It turned these dusty outposts into melting pots of gossip culture and the occasional tall tale. Think of it as the Han Dynasty's version of a diner greasy spoon included. But here's where the historians start bickering. Did this postal system really glue the empire together? Some say it was the emperor's secret weapon, letting him keep tabs on far-flung provinces and squash trouble before it brewed. Others roll their eyes, pointing out the delays, lost scrolls, and local bigwigs who didn't care what the capital said. Was it a lifeline of control or just a fancy paper trail? No one's got a tidy answer, so you can snooze on it and pick a side in your dreams. Oh, and there was that time a monkey got loose. Some merchant's pet escaped its leash, nabbed a scroll from Leeway's desk, and scampered up a beam, chattering like it owned the place. The clerks tried everything: bribes of dried fruit, pleading, even Zhang Jun scaling the rafters like a reluctant hero. They got the scroll back, a bit wrinkled but readable, and the station master just sighed. At least it wasn't the Emperor's laundry list. Chaos monkeys and a happy ending. What more could you ask for? This postal network wasn't just about paperwork, it was the Empire's heartbeat. Edicts, battle plans, and family notes crisscrossed the land, all thanks to these gritty little stations. Each one was a thread in the Han Dynasty's tapestry, holding it together through sheer stubborn hustle. As night creeps in, the relay station winds down. The last couriers vanish under the soft flicker of lanterns, their shadows stretching long and lazy across the dirt. Horses settle into their stalls, nickering softly like they're whispering goodnight. The clerks, fingers black with ink, shuffle off to their bunks, dreaming of places they'll never ride to. A gentle breeze carries the scent of jasmine, cool and sweet, wrapping you up like a blanket. The dust is still, the noise fades, and all you hear is the faint hoot of an owl in the distance. So, as the stars wink down, we slip away from the relay station, knowing tomorrow it'll kick back into gear. For now, though, let the quiet wash over you. Sleep tight, and let the ancient roads carry you off to dreamland. The night is quiet, save for the scratch of your brush against the scroll and the occasional sputter of the candle on your desk. You're knee-deep in calculations, trying to figure out just how much it costs to keep the Han Dynasty's postal system chugging along. It's a beast of a network stretching across mountains, deserts, and rivers, and you're starting to suspect it might eat up more coins than the Emperor's treasury can handle. Still, you press on, quill in hand, determined to make sense of it all. The people power. First up, manpower. This isn't just a handful of couriers galloping around, it's a whole workforce. There are clerks like you scribbling away in relay stations from the bustling capital of Chang'an to the windswept edges of the empire. Then there are the couriers, those wild riders who dodge bandits and mudslides to get the emperor's orders where they need to go. And don't forget the stable hands knee-deep in hay and horse dung keeping the animals ready to run. Picture hundreds of relay stations dotting the landscape, let's say 100, just to keep the math manageable. If each station has about 5 people, a clerk, a couple of couriers, and some stable hands, that's 500 folks on the payroll. A modest salary might be 10 coins a month per person. Nothing fancy, mind you, so that's 5,000 coins a month, just to keep everyone fed and happy. You jot that down, already feeling the weight of those coins piling up. The horse hustle. Next, the horses. These noble beasts are the backbone of the system, carrying messages faster than any human could run. Each relay station needs a good stock, say 10 horses apiece. That's 1,000 horses across 100 stations. Buying a decent horse might set you back 50 coins, so the initial bill for the herd is a whopping 50,000 coins. But it doesn't stop there. Feeding and caring for the moats water a new shoe when they throw one could run 5 coins per horse per month. That's another 5,000 coins every month just to keep them trotting. And horses don't last forever. You'll need to replace them now and then, which means more big purchases down the line. You scribble the numbers, imagining the imperial accountants weeping into their tea. The infrastructure investment. Then there's the infrastructure because horses and people need somewhere to work. Relay stations aren't flimsy huts. They're solid outposts built to last. Constructing one might cost 1,000 coins, what with the timber stone and labor involved. For 100 stations, that's an upfront cost of 100,000 coins. And maintenance roofs leak, walls crack, and the roads sow the roads. Those endless paths need constant repair to fight off rain ruts, and the occasional bandit who thinks a pothole makes a great ambush spot. Call it 100 coins per station per year for upkeep to Zruazo coins annually, or about 833 coins a month if you spread it out. Your brush hesitates as you tally it up. This system isn't cheap. The grand total. You lean back, rubbing your bleary eyes, and try to piece it all together. The initial investment stations and horses comes to 150,000 coins, 100,000 plus, 50,000 $. Then the monthly costs 5,000 for staff, 5,000 for horse care, and 833 for maintenance, totaling around 10,833 coins every month. It's a fortune enough to make even the emperor blink. But as your candle flickers, you realize something: this isn't just a money pit. It's the glue holding the empire together. Without it, edicts wouldn't reach the provinces, armies wouldn't march, and you'd be out of a job. You blow out the candle, the room fading to black, and shuffle to bed. The numbers swirl in your head like a restless wind, but there's a strange comfort in them. You're part of this grand machine, keeping the Han Dynasty connected. As you drift off, you hear the faint clip-clop of hooves in the distance, carrying the Empire's words through the night. A victory worth celebrating. A few days later, you're back on that same bench, the air heavy with jasmine and millet when she returns. Her face is glowing now, like she's won a prize. "It worked," she cries. "My brother got it just before he left for some fancy diplomatic trip. He petitioned the court, and the land's ours." You grin, passing her some tea. "Nice to hear. Sounds like the couriers rode hard." "They did," she says, sipping happily. "He said they swapped horses all night. I thought it was lost, but it came through." You lean back, feeling a flicker of pride. The Han postal system's a beast relay stations every 30 li, about 15 kilometers, stretching across the empire like a giant web. It's one of the ancient world's wonders, moving everything from imperial orders to desperate pleas like hers. When it works, it's magic. You picture the couriers tearing through the dark, maybe with a quirky pet, along for the ride some carried birds or monkeys tucked into their robes for company. A little odd, sure, but those long roads get lonely, a craftsman's crushing blow. Not every tale's a happy one, though. A week later, you're elbow deep in delayed dispatches when a craftsman storms in face, flush smelling faintly of wood and lacquer. My message never made it, he roars, slamming the counter. Sent a sample to a patron in Luoyang best lacquerware around. He was set to buy big, but it's gone, and he picked someone else. You flip through the logbook heart-sinking. There it is, sent but undelivered. Looks like it got lost, you admit. I'm sorry, he snaps. That was my big break. Now I've got a pile of unsold trays and a ruined name. You nod. Guilt prickling. Well, look into it, you offer, but he's already stomping off. Cursing the system, and you probably... It stings, but he's not wrong to be mad. Lost messages, delays, even whispers of clerks pocketing bribes, it's the ugly side of the network. For every win, there's a flop waiting to trip someone up. Scholars still bicker over it was the postal system's efficiency, the secret sauce of the Han's long reign, or just a shiny perk of its iron grip. You're too tired to pick a side, but you know it's a double-edged sword. The pulse of the people night falls, the village hushing as crickets take over. You step outside, breathing in the cool floral air, thinking of that woman's relief and the craftsman's rage. Two threads in the same tapestry woven through your hands. The postal system's more than scrolls and satchels, sits the empire's heartbeat, linking farmers to generals for better or worse. You're just a cog in it, but tonight, that's enough. You head inside, the quiet settling over you like a soft blanket ready for the next story tomorrow brings. You trudge through the dusty streets of Chang'an, the late afternoon sun, casting long shadows across the bustling marketplace. The air hums with the scent of roasting meats and the chatter of merchants haggling over silk and spices, but your thoughts are elsewhere. You've been summoned to a meeting, you a lowly clerk in the Han Dynasty's postal system. It's not every day someone like you gets a front row seat to the bigwigs arguing over the future, but your work on that express route experiment must have caught someone's eye. As you weave through the crowd, you think about the postal system's roots. Ever since Emperor Gaozu stitched this empire together, it's been the lifeline keeping everything connected, taxes rolling in, orders flowing out provinces, tied to the capital like beads on a string. A marvel, really, for its time. But lately there's been grumbling. The system's creaking under the weight of a growing empire, and now there's talk of shaking things up. The progressives want reform. The traditionalists want to leave well enough alone. And you're just hoping you don't get stuck delivering the bad news either way. You reach the grand hall, its wooden beams looming overhead, and slip inside. The cool air washes over you as you find a spot near the back. The room's already buzzing. Officials in their swishing robes settle into their seats, scrolls and brushes at the ready. At the front, two figures command attention. Minister Liu, a progressive with a gleam in his eye, and Overseer Zhang, a grizzled traditionalist who looks like he's seen more emperors than you've seen sunrises. Minister Liu steps forward, his voice cutting through the murmur. Esteemed colleagues, we're at a turning point. The empire's expanding trade's booming borders are stretching, and our postal system's struggling to keep pace. We need to modernize. He unfurls a map across the table, tracing the sprawling web of relay stations and routes with his finger. Imagine messages zipping across the empire in half the time. Faster decisions, stronger control. It's possible if we're bold enough to try. Overseer Zhang snorts, arms crossed tight. Bold or reckless? What's your grand plan? Wave a wand and make it happen. Liu smiles unruffled. Not magic, Overseer. Innovation. Take the West. They've been experimenting with carrier pigeons for quick messages over short distances. We could do the same. The room ripples with whispers. Pigeons. You've heard tales of those flapping messengers, but the thought of trusting a bird with an imperial decree feels like a gamble. What if it lands in a farmer's stew instead of a governor's hands? Zhang pounces on the doubt. Pigeons. You're joking. Those feathered fools would get lost or snatched by hawks before they crossed a single province. We might as well train dogs to run scrolls through the mountains. You bite back a grin, picturing a pack of scruffy mutts trotting along with satchels bouncing on their backs. It's absurd, but it breaks the tension for a moment. until Liu presses on. Pigeons are just one idea, he says. We could breed faster horses, build more relay stations, cut the gaps between stops. Efficiency's the key. Zhang's face hardens. Efficiency at what cost? Faster horses don't come cheap, and new stations mean draining the treasury. The system's held for centuries, why fix what won't broken? The debate ignites. Liu argues the system's too slow, pointing to delays you've grumbled about yourself. Messages arriving days late, orders lost in the shuffle. Zhang fires back that tradition's the glue holding the empire together. Rip it up and who knows what falls apart. You see both sides, honestly. You've cursed the slog of hauling scrolls across rickety routes, but you've also seen how the old ways keep things steady. The room grows loud, voices overlapping until Liu drops a quirky twist. In some border towns, they've even tried signaling with smoke-quick bursts to warn of trouble. Not for scrolls, but it's fast. We could learn from that. Chang rolls his eyes. Smoke what's next, shouting across the empire. Stick to what works. You lean back, scribbling notes to look busy, but your mind's racing. Leah's ideas spark something. Could the system really leap forward like that? Yet Zhang's not wrong. Change could unravel the whole operation if it goes awry. Scholars still argue over this, you've heard, whether our postal network was the envy of the world or just a clunky necessity that stumbled along. You've seen enough lost parcels to wonder yourself. Hours pass, and the meeting stalls. No winner, no decision. The officials file out, still bickering, and you linger, tidying your papers. That's when you catch a snatch of hushed talk near the door. The Emperor's wary of change, one official mutters. He won't back this easily. Show him the gains, the other replies, and he might. It's all in the pitch. You smirk. Politics. Fantastic. Just what this mess needs: more court games. Outside, night's fallen and lanterns glow softly along the streets. You head home, boots scuffing the dirt, mulling it over. Progress or tradition, speed or stability. You're just a clerk stuck in the thick of it, but there's a thrill in the air, something's brewing, and you're right there to see it unfold. What happens next? Well, that's a tale for another night. The candle on your desk flickers, its light dancing over the bamboo slips you've been sorting. Your back aches, your eyes are heavy, but your thoughts are restless. The Han postal system, this sprawling web of relay stations, dusty roads, and weary horses, was a wonder of its time. But it's also a riddle, one that scholars still pick apart like a knotty piece of silk. As you stretch your cramped fingers, you can help, but ponder the questions that echo through history. How well did this system really work? What did it mean for the empire? And why can't the experts agree? Was it fast or just flashy? First up, efficiency. The postal system sounds grand on a scroll station's every 30 LEI couriers swapping mounts to keep the pace messages racing from the capital to the frontier like wildfire. Some scholars point to tales of military orders arriving just in time to turn a battle-proof of a machine that hummed with precision. But others scoff, muttering about lost tax reports, wayward couriers, and messages that arrived later than a spring thaw. You've seen it yourself one day. A dispatch lands on your desk right on schedule. The next, it's as if the horse took a detour through a wine shop. Was the system a marvel of speed or a patchwork that barely held together, the debates as lively as a market brawl? And you suspect the truth lies somewhere in the muddled middle. The Emperor's leash or a loose thread. Then there's the matter of control. Did the postal system keep the empire's far-off corners tethered to the throne? Some argue it was the emperor's lifeline, carrying edicts to distant governors and keeping rebellion at bay. Others shrug, sure, it moved orders around, but local lords could always misplace a scroll if it suited them. You've heard rumors of clerks quietly burying inconvenient commands, and you wonder, was this network a steel chain or just a fancy string? Scholars split hairs over whether it truly stabilized the Han or simply kept the paperwork flowing. You lean back, imagining a governor squinting at a late dispatch, and grin at the thought that even emperors can't rush a tired horse. Clever tools or just hard work? What about the technology? Relay stations? Fresh horses sealed bamboo slips? Pretty clever for a world without wheels on every cart. Some scholars say the Han system outdid the Romans or Persians, with a network vast enough to span mountains and deserts. Others argue it was less about brilliance and more about brute effort, thousands of clerks and couriers slogging through the dust. You've seen the sweat behind it, the ink-stained robes, the bleary-eyed riders. Was it innovation or stubborn grit that kept it running? You're not sure, but you'd bet a month's wages it wasn't as glamorous as the scrolls make it sound. Did it reach the people? And the common folk? Did they feel the postal system's pulse? Officially, it was all imperial business troop movements, tax tallies, stern commands. But you've handled more than that: merchant letters, village petitions, even a lovesick poem or two. Some scholars insist it was a locked box open only to the elite. Others say it quietly knit the empire together, letting trade and gossip flow like rivers. You've seen a farmer's son send harvest news, a trader haggle over silk from afar. Maybe it wasn't meant for them, but it happened anyway. Could it have been a thread in the empire's tapestry, not just the emperor's megaphone? You smirk. Picturing a courier grumbling about hauling a love note instead of a war plan? What's left to prove it? The evidence is the trickiest part. Scholars dig through what's left: bamboo scraps, tally sticks, crumbling relay station walls. It's like piecing together a robe from a handful of threads, enough to guess, not enough to know. Some say these relics prove the system's might. Others call it overhyped, a shadow of what we imagine. You've held those slips, felt their fragile weight, but you know most of the story's lost to time. The experts squabble over every shard, and you can't blame them. History's a puzzle with half the pieces missing. As you snuff out the candle, the room fades to black, and your questions blur into the night. The Han postal system was brilliant, flawed, vital, and maddening all at once. Maybe that's why the debates never end. It's too human to pin down. You shuffle to bed, the clatter of hooves and the rustle of scrolls fading into dreams, leaving the scholars to their endless tug of war. The night has draped itself over Chang'an, a quiet veil of darkness, pierced only by the faint glow of stars. You sit by your window, a lowly clerk in the vast machinery of the Han Dynasty's postal system, the cool air brushing your face with whispers of jasmine and wood smoke. The day's work lies scattered across your desk. Scrolls, half-tallied, ink-stained notes, a seal that's starting to crack. But for now, you let it rest. The empire can hold its breath until dawn. You gaze upward, the sky a tapestry of twinkling lights, and your thoughts drift to the system you serve. It's a grand thing, this postal network, roads stretching like veins across the land, relay stations, pulsing with messages, couriers racing against time. You're a small cog in it, stamping forms, sorting dispatches, ensuring the emperor's words or a farmer's plea reach their mark. There's order in it, a rhythm like the steady drip of a water clock, each piece sliding into place with a satisfying click. And yet chaos lurks. You've seen it: a scroll misplaced that left a governor fuming, a courier delayed by a swollen river, a message garbled by a sleepy scribe. It's a beast, this system, all hooves and horns when it wants to be. You've muttered curses at it, wondering if the endless rules and red tape are worth the headache. But somehow it endures. Edicts arrive, armies move. The empire stands. It's a teetering balance, a thread pulled tight between structure and collapse. You think of old Lee, the courier with the uneven gait and the jade pendant. He rubs for luck. He's ridden these roads forever, dodging storms and bandits that little charm his shield against the wild unknown. It's people like him, like you, Evan, that keep the chaos at bay, threading order through the mess with stubborn hands and a touch of faith. This postal system, they say, was one of the first of its kind, a blueprint for empires yet to come. That thought warms you, knowing your dusty desk is part of something bigger. Scholars still argue over it, of course. Some call it a triumph of efficiency. Others a snarl of bureaucracy gone mad. You've lived both truths: the precision of a well-run day, the pandemonium of a lost delivery. Maybe it's both. Maybe it's neither. The night grows deeper, the stars softer, and your eyelids begin to droop. This system flaws and all mirrors life itself, a tug of war between what's planned and what's unpredictable. You've done your part today, and tomorrow you'll pick up the brush again, keeping the empire's pulse alive. For now, the quiet cradles you the stars, a gentle lullaby, The world can wait. Sleep calls and you let it take you. Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the quiet, stone-walled world of a medieval monastery, where the air smells like fresh hay incense and, believe it or not, cheese. Picture yourself in a dimly lit room, the flicker of candlelight casting shadows on ancient manuscripts while outside the sun hasn't even thought about rising yet. You're about to experience a day in the life of a monk, but not just any monkone who's got a secret talent for cheese making. And spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this journey without craving a slice of cheddar by the end. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up in the dead of night, or at least it feels like it because the bell for matins is ringing. And it's time for the first prayers of the day. The monastery is a place of routine where every hour is accounted for and every task is a form of worship. As you shuffle through the cold corridors, your breath visible in the chilly air, you can help. But think about the warm bed you left behind. But duty calls, and in a monastery, duty is everything. After prayers, it's back to bed for a few more hours of sleep. But soon enough, the bell rings again for lauds, and the day officially begins. The monks gather in the chapel, their voices rising in unison, a chorus of devotion that echoes off the stone walls. It's a beautiful sound, but you're already thinking about breakfast. Unfortunately, in a monastery, breakfast isn't a lavish affair. It's usually just a piece of bread and maybe some ale if you're lucky. But today you have something to look forward to cheese making. You see, monasteries in the Middle Ages were more than just places of prayer. They were self-sufficient communities. The monks grew their own food, brewed their own beer, and yes, made their own cheese. Cheese was a staple in the monastic diet, especially during fasting periods when meat was off the menu. It was also a valuable commodity that could be traded or given as gifts to important visitors. So, after morning prayers and a quick bite, you head to the dairy. The monastery's dairy is a bustling place with monks hurrying about, tending to the cows, goats, and sheep. The air is thick with the smell of milk and manure, but you've gotten used to it. Your job today is to help with the cheese making, a task that requires patience, skill, and a steady hand. The process starts with milking the animals. You grab a wooden bucket and a three-legged stool and you sit down next to a cow named Bessie. She's a gentle creature, but she's not too fond of being milked, so you have to be careful. With each squeeze, the milk squirts into the bucket, a rhythmic sound that's almost hypnotic. Once the bucket is full, you carry it to the cheese room where the real work begins. In the cheese room, the milk is poured into a large cauldron and heated over a fire. As the milk warms, you add rennet, a substance that causes the milk to curdle. Rennet was traditionally made from the stomach lining of young calves, but don't worry, we won't go into too much detail about that. Once the milk is curdled, you stir it gently, breaking up the curds into smaller pieces. Next, you drain off the whey, the liquid part of the milk, leaving behind the solid curds. The curds are then placed into molds which give the cheese its shape. In medieval times, these molds were often made of wood or wicker, and they came in various sizes from small rounds to large wheels. You press the curds into the molds, applying just the right amount of pressure to squeeze out any remaining whey. After the cheese has been pressed, it's time to salt it. Salt not only adds flavor, but also helps preserve the cheese. You rub the salt into the surface of the cheese, making sure it's evenly coated. Then the cheese is left to age in a cool, dark place like a cellar or a cave. The aging process can take anywhere from a few weeks to several months, depending on the type of cheese. As you work, you can't help but admire the craftsmanship involved in cheese making. It's a skill that's been passed down through generations, and each monastery has its own secret recipes and techniques. Some cheeses are soft and creamy, others are hard and tangy, but all of them are made with care and dedication. But cheese making isn't just about the process, it's also about the community. In a monastery, everyone has a role to play, and cheese making is a task that brings the monks together. It's a time for conversation, for sharing stories, and for bonding over a shared goal. And when the cheese is finally ready, it's a source of pride for the entire community. Of course, not everything is perfect in the world of monastic cheese making. There are challenges like dealing with spoiled milk or pesky rodents trying to get a taste of the cheese. And then there's the issue of left-handedness. You see, in the Middle Ages, left-handed people were often viewed with suspicion, and some even believed that left-handedness was a sign of the devil. This superstition extended to cheese making, and there were those who thought that cheese made by a left-handed monk might be cursed or tainted in some way. But that's a story for another section. For now, you're content to focus on the task at hand, knowing that your hard work will result in a delicious and nutritious food that will sustain the monastery for months to come. As the day draws to a close, you join the other monks for Vespers, the evening prayers. The chapel is filled with the scent of incense, and the flickering candles cast a warm glow on the faces of the monks. You feel a sense of peace and fulfillment, knowing that you've contributed to the life of the monastery in a meaningful way. And as you drift off to sleep that night, you can't help but dream of cheese wheels of it stacked high in the cellar, waiting to be enjoyed. It's a simple pleasure, but in the quiet, disciplined world of the monastery, it's one of the small joys that make life worth living. You wake up to the sound of the bell tolling for lauds, the first light of dawn creeping through the narrow window of your cell. It's still early, but you're used to it by now. You throw on your habit, splash some cold water on your face, and make your way to the chapel. The air is crisp and the monastery is quiet except for the soft footsteps of your fellow monks. You take your place in the choir and the familiar chants begin. The prayers are a comfort, a steady rhythm that anchors your day. After lauds, it's time for breakfast. You head to the refectory where a simple meal awaits bread ale and, of course, cheese. The cheese is a staple here, and you can't help but feel a sense of pride, knowing that you had a hand in making it. As you eat, you think about the day ahead. Today, like most days, will be filled with prayer work and study. But the work that excites you the most is cheese making. It's a craft that requires skill and patience, and it's something you've come to love. After breakfast, you make your way to the dairy. The cows are already waiting, their breath visible in the cool morning air. You grab a bucket and a stool and begin the task of milking. It's hard work, but there's something meditative about it. The rhythmic sound of milk hitting the bucket is soothing, and you find your mind wandering to the prayers you chanted earlier. Once the milking is done, you carry the buckets to the cheese room. Here, the real work begins. You pour the milk into a large cauldron and light the fire beneath it. As the milk heats, you add the rennet, watching as it slowly transforms into curds and whey. While the milk is curdling, you have a moment to catch your breath. You step outside and take in the view of the monastery grounds. The gardens are lush with herbs and vegetables, and you can see the other monks tending to their tasks. Some are working in the fields, others in the scriptorium copying manuscripts. But your attention is drawn back to the cheese room. It's time to cut the curds. You take a long knife and carefully slice through the solid mass, breaking it into smaller pieces. Then you stir the mixture, helping the whey to separate. As you work, you can't help but think about the history of cheese making in monasteries. It's a tradition that dates back centuries, and monasteries were often at the forefront of agricultural innovation. They developed new techniques and shared their knowledge with the local communities. In fact, many of the cheeses we know today, like Gouda and cheddar, have their origins in monastic cheese making. It's a legacy that you're proud to be a part of. But not everything is straightforward. There's an ongoing debate among historians about the exact methods used by medieval monks. Some argue that they used wooden molds, while others believe that wicker was more common. There's also disagreement about the types of rennet they used. Was it always from calves, or did they sometimes use plant-based alternatives? These are questions that may never be fully answered, but they add to the mystique of monastic cheese-making. As the morning progresses, you continue with the cheese-making process. After the whey has been drained, you scoop the curds into molds, pressing them firmly to shape the cheese. It's a satisfying feeling knowing that your efforts will result in something tangible and delicious. By the time the bell rings for terce, the mid-morning prayers, you're ready for a break. You wash your hands and make your way back to the chapel. The prayers are a welcome respite, a chance to rest your body and refocus your mind. After terce, you return to the cheese room to check on your work. The cheese is coming along nicely, but there's still more to do. You need to salt it, which will help preserve it and enhance the flavor. You take a handful of salt and rub it into the surface of the cheese, making sure it's evenly coated. Then you place the cheese on a shelf in the cellar where it will age for several weeks. As you work, you can't help but notice that one of your fellow monks is struggling with his task. He's left-handed, and in a world designed for right-handed people, he often finds himself at a disadvantage. You offer to help, but he insists on doing it himself. You admire his determination, but you also know that left-handedness is viewed with suspicion by some. There are whispers that left-handed cheese might be cursed, but you dismiss them as superstition. After all, cheese is cheese, no matter who makes it. The day continues with more prayers, meals, and work. In the afternoon, you tend to the animals, making sure they have enough food and water. You also check on the cheese in the cellar, noting how it's progressing. As the sun begins to set, you join the other monks for Vespers, the evening prayers. The chapel is bathed in golden light, and the chants take on a somber, reflective tone. It's a beautiful end to a productive day. After dinner, you have a bit of free time before complying the final prayers of the day. You decide to take a walk around the monastery, enjoying the peace and quiet. The stars are beginning to appear in the sky, and you feel a sense of contentment. Finally, it's time for compline. The prayers are short and sweet, a gentle reminder of the day's blessings. Then it's off to bed, where you drift off to sleep, dreaming of cheese once again. You wake up again, the familiar toll of the bell pulling you from dreams of creamy wheels and tangy rinds. It's another day in the monastery, and you're already thinking about the cheese waiting in the cellar. But today feels different. There's a buzz in the air, a whisper of something extraordinary. You pull on your habit and shuffle toward the chapel for Lauds the dawn light. Painting the stone walls in soft gold. The chants rise and fall, but your mind drifts to yesterday's work. The cheese you salted and stored felt special, didn't it? Maybe it's just monkish pride, but you swear the curds were firmer, the way clearer. After prayers, you join the others in the refectory for breakfast bread ale and a wedge of last month's batch. It's good as always, but you're itching to get back to the dairy. You grab your bucket and head out to milk the cows, their gentle moose, greeting you like old friends. The rhythm of the task steadies your thoughts, and you start to wonder about the stories you've heard, tales of miracles tied to the monastery's cheese. It's not just sustenance here. It's a tradition that's kept this place alive for centuries. Monasteries like yours were the Silicon Valley of the Middle Ages, churning out agricultural breakthroughs while the rest of the world was busy swinging swords. Cheesemaking was one of those innovations, a craft perfected behind these walls and shared with the villages beyond. The milk sloshes into the cauldron as you stoke the fire, and you add the rennet with a practiced hand. The process is second nature now, but today you're distracted by a memoria story Brother Anselm told you last week. It was about the great cheese miracle, a day when the monastery's cheese supposedly saved the day. You smirk a little, thinking it sounds like something out of a bad medieval sitcom, but you're curious. As the milk curdles, you picture it, a harsh winter years ago when the crops failed and the villagers were starving. The monastery stores were low too, but the cheese cellar was full wheels upon wheels, aged to perfection. The abbot, in a moment of divine inspiration or desperation, sent the monks out with cheese instead of bread. The villagers devoured it, and somehow it sustained them through the frost. Word spread, and soon people were calling it a miracle. Historians love this tidbit. It's a solid fact that monasteries often bailed out their neighbors with food reserves, cheese included. You cut the curd stirring as the whey separates and let your mind wander to the quirkier details Anselm mentioned. Apparently, the monks back then added wild thyme from the hills to that batch, giving it a flavor so distinct that some swore it was blessed. You chuckle, blessed cheese. Sure, if by blessed they meant taste better than stale barley. Still, you can't deny the charm of the idea. Thyme still growing out there? Maybe you'll sneak some into tomorrow's batch and see if it sparks a miracle of your own. The morning rolls on, and you press the curds into molds, the satisfying thud of the weights echoing in the cheese room. The bell for terce rings, and you trudge back to the chapel, hands still smelling faintly of milk. The prayers are a blur. Your thoughts are on that winter story. Scholars still argue about it, you know. Some say the miracle was just good logistics, monks being practical, not holy. Others insist there's evidence of something more like unusual weather patterns that spared the monastery's herd when others perished. Did the cheese really save the day, or was it just a well-timed PR stunt? You're no historian, but you like the mystery of it. Back in the cheese room, you salt the new wheels, rubbing the coarse grains into the rind. The cellar's cool darkness welcomes you as you stack them on the shelves. Each one a little promise of future meals. You think about that time again. Maybe it looks like it wasn't just flavor. Maybe it was a secret weapon, a medieval superfood that kept everyone going. You're half tempted to believe the wilder tales like the one about a monk who claimed the cheese glowed faintly in the dark. Probably just mold you snort to yourself, but it's fun to imagine. The day hums along lunch in the refectory, a quick check on the cows, afternoon prayers at noon. You're back in the dairy later tending to the aging cheeses, turning them so they ripen evenly. The routine is comforting, but that miracle story sticks with you. It's not just about cheese, it's about how this place, this life holds things together when the world outside falters. You're part of that now, a link in a chain stretching back centuries. As the sun dips low, Vespers calls you to the chapel again. The golden light spills through the windows and the chants feel heavier tonight, like they're carrying the weight of that old winter. Dinner follows, more cheese naturally, and you linger in the refectory listening to the others swap stories. Brother Anselm catches your eye and winks as if he knows you've been mulling over his tale. Afterward, you take your usual walk around the grounds, the stars pricking the sky one by one. The monastery's quiet now, save for the distant lowing of the cows. Complain comes and goes, the final prayers wrapping the day in peace. You climb into bed, the straw mattress creaking under you, and close your eyes. The great cheese miracle dances in your mind, thyme-laced wheels. Grateful villagers, a glowing rind. You drift off smiling, dreaming of cheese that might just change the world. You've spent days in the monastery now, and the rhythm of life here is starting to feel familiar. The bells, the prayers, the quiet moments in the cheese room, they all blend into a comforting routine. But as you work, you can't help but notice how much everyone relies on the cheese you're making. It's not just a side dish or luxury, it's a lifeline. Remember the great cheese miracle. That story Brother Anselm told you about the harsh winter when the monastery's cheese saved the village. It's not just a legend, it's a testament to how crucial cheese was in medieval times. Back then, food preservation was a matter of life and death. Without refrigerators or modern storage, people needed ways to make food last. Cheese was one of the best solutions. Milk spoils quickly, but cheese can be aged for months, even years. That's why monasteries became cheese-making powerhouses. They had the knowledge, the resources, and the need. In the Middle Ages, cheese was a staple, especially for monks. Their diet was often restricted with meat forbidden on many days. Cheese provided the protein and fat they needed to keep going. It was also a key part of their hospitality. When travelers or pilgrims stopped by, a wedge of cheese was a common offering. It was a way to share the monastery's bounty and to fulfill their duty of charity. But cheese wasn't just about sustenance. It was also about economics. Monasteries were self-sufficient communities, but they still needed to trade for things they couldn't produce themselves. Cheese was a valuable commodity. It could be bartered for grain cloth or tools. Some monasteries even became famous for their cheese, attracting buyers from far and wide. Imagine that, a medieval cheese brand complete with its own loyal following. You're starting to see why cheese making is such a big deal here. It's not just a task. It's a tradition, a craft passed down through generations. Each wheel carries the weight of history, of survival, of community. But there's something else you've noticed, a whisper of unease when certain monks handle the cheese. You've seen it in the way Brother Cedric, who's left-handed, gets sidelong glances when he's in the dairy. It's subtle, but it's there. You've heard mutterings about the devil's hand in tainted batches. It seems silly to you, but in this time, superstitions run deep. Left-handedness has always been a bit of a mystery. In many cultures, it's been seen as unlucky or even sinister. The word sinister itself comes from the Latin for left. In the monastery, where every action is imbued with spiritual significance, using the left hand for sacred tasks, like cheese making, might be seen as inviting trouble. You recall the tools you use in the cheese room. The wooden paddles, the metal skimmers, the wicker molds. They're all designed for right-handed use. Brother Cedric has to adapt, and sometimes his methods look a little awkward. Maybe that's why people are wary, or maybe it's just old superstitions dying hard. For now, though, you push those thoughts aside. There's work to be done. The curds need stirring, the molds need filling, and the cheese needs salting. You focus on the task at hand, feeling the satisfaction of creating something that will nourish and sustain. As the day winds down, you join the other monks for Vespers. The chapel is cool and dim, the air thick with incense. You bow your head, but your mind is still on the cheese cellar on the wheels, aging quietly in the dark. There's a kind of magic in it, you think, slow transformation from milk to cheese, from perishable to enduring. Later, as you lie in your narrow bed, you can almost hear the monastery breathing around you. The stones hold centuries of stories of monks who came before you, who made cheese just as you do now. And somewhere in those stories, there's a thread about left-handedness, about fear and superstition. You're curious to learn more, but for tonight, you let it go. Sleep is calling, and tomorrow is another day. You wake to the distant clanging of the monastery's bells, their echo bouncing off the stone walls like a gentle nudge from the heavens. The dream you had, spinning cheese wheels, turning leftward, defying every rule you've ever known, still dances in your mind. You blink into the dimness of your cell. The air thick with the musty scent of wool and the faint, sweet rot of autumn leaves slipping through the window slit. Your left hand twitches under the blanket, and you can't shake the thought, why does it feel so wrong to even think about using it? Rising, you splash icy water from the basin onto your face, the shock of it pulling you fully awake. The monastery hums with its usual rhythm, soft footsteps, the creak of wooden benches, the low murmur of prayers drifting from the chapel. You pull on your habit, the coarse fabric catching on your knuckles, and shuffle out into the morning, determined to dig deeper into this left-hand mystery. Breakfast is the same as always, a hunk of dark bread, a thin slice of cheese, and a mug of watery ale. You sit across from Brother Cedric again, the left-handed monk who's become your quiet obsession. He is careful as usual, keeping his left hand low, breaking his bread with his right as if it's second nature now. You chew slowly, the bread's gritty texture scraping your tongue, and watch him out of the corner of your eye. Does he feel the weight of those stares, or has he just grown used to it? After the meal, you trail him to the scriptorium where the monks are busy copying manuscripts. The room smells of ink and old parchment, a sharp, tangy mix that stings your nose. Cedric takes his place at a desk, his quill poised awkwardly in his left hand. You linger nearby, pretending to adjust a candle, and notice how he angles his body to keep the ink from smudging, and a small rebellion against a world built for the right-handed. "Brother Cedric," you whispered, leaning closer. "How do you manage it, writing like that with everyone watching?" He glances up his quill, pausing mid-stroke, and offers a faint smile. "Practice," he says simply, "and a steady hand. Though I'll admit I've ruined more than one page in my time." You grin, imagining a younger Cedric, ink-stained and flustered, trying to fit into a right-handed mold. "They say the left hand's cursed you press, keeping your voice low. Do you believe it?" He snorts softly, a sound that's almost lost in the rustle of turning pages. "If it's cursed, it's a mild one. The worst I've suffered is a cramped wrist and Brother Oswald's lectures on proper form." You laugh, drawing a sharp glance from Brother Oswald himself, who's hunched over a psalter across the room. You duck your head, but the question still burns. Where did this fear of the left hand come from you? I've heard whisper tales of the devil favoring the left of left-handed witches casting spells. But surely there's more to it than that. Later in the cloister, you corner Brother Anselm again. He's perched on a bench whittling a small wooden cross, the shavings, curling like tiny scrolls at his feet. The air here is fresher, laced with the earthy scent of damp moss clinging to the stones. "Brother Anselm," you begin, "tell me more about the left-hand thing. Why is it such a fuss he doesn't look up his knife, scraping rhythmically against the wood?" "It's older than the church itself," he says after a pause. Goes back to the Romans even further. The Latin word for left sinister says, "It all doesn't it? Bad omens, dark deeds." By the time Christianity took hold, it was already tangled up in ideas of good and evil. The right hand blesses the left hand. Well, it doesn't. You frown, kicking at a pebble. But why it's just a hand? Anselm chuckles, setting the cross aside. People fear what's different, lad. Most folk are right-handed, always have been. So the left-handed one stood out. Add a few Bible verses about the right hand of God, and suddenly it's holy writ. Plus there's the practical bit swords, shield tool saw made for the right. A left-handed man could throw everything off. You picture a left-handed knight swinging a sword from an unexpected angle, catching his foe off guard. It's a thrilling thought, almost heroic. So it's not all superstition, you say. Some of it's just life exactly. Anselm nods. Though the superstition's the fun part. Ever hear about the left-handed bells? You shake your head, intrigued. Bells. Aye. Some villages swore that if a left-handed man rang the church bell, it'd summon storms or wake the dead. Pure nonsense, but they'd tie the poor sod's hand behind his back just to be safe. You burst out laughing, picturing a frantic bell ringer hopping around with one arm bound. That's mad as it gets, Anselm agrees, his eyes twinkling. And yet here we are still side-eyeing Brother Cedric like he's about to hex the cheese. The day rolls on and you find yourself testing your own left hand, passing a broom, lifting a bucket, even scratching your nose. It's awkward, like trying to walk with one shoe off and you nearly drop the bucket on Brother Oswald's foot, earning a glare that could curdle milk. But it's fascinating, too, how something so simple can feel so foreign. By evening, you're back in the cheese room, the air heavy with the sour tang of fermenting curds. Cedric's there, pressing a wheel into its mold with his left hand, and you decide to join him. You mimic his movements using your left hand to scoop curds, and he notices, raising an eyebrow. Trying to join the cursed club, he teases. Maybe you shoot back, grinning. Think the cheese'll glow if we both use our left hands. He laughs, and for a moment the room feels lighter, the old taboos shrinking in the warmth of shared mischief. But as you work, your mind drifts to the bigger question: how much of this fear is real? And how much is just stories we tell ourselves? Scholars still debate it, you know. Some point to religious roots, the Last Judgment, where the saved sit at God's right hand, the damned at his left. Others argue it's more earthly, born from a world where conformity kept things running smoothly. There's even a wild theory about left-handedness being a mark of rebellion, a quiet defiance against the order of things. As night falls, you lie in bed, the monastery silent save for the wind rattling the shutters. You flex your left hand, feeling its strength, its strangeness. Tomorrow, you'll ask Brother Cedric about those left-handed knights you've heard of. Maybe there's a story there, something to unravel. For now, though, sleep creeps in and you drift off, dreaming of a world where left hands rule, and the cheese wheels spin whichever way they please. You sit in the scriptorium, the air thick with the scent of parchment and ink. Sunlight filters through the narrow windows, casting a warm glow on the wooden desks where monks hunch over their work. The scratch of quills fills the room, a steady rhythm like the patter of rain on a roof. Your eyes are drawn to Brother Cedric, the left-handed monk who sits apart from the others. His left hand moves with practiced ease, the quill dancing across the page as he illuminates a manuscript. The colors seem to leap from his brush, vibrant reds, deep blues, and shimmering golds, as if blessed by some unseen force. You can't help but admire his skill, yet you know that his left-handedness sets him apart in this monastery where tradition and conformity reign supreme. The religious significance of hands. As you watch, you recall a lesson from the abbot about the significance of hands in Scripture. The right hand of the Lord is exalted, he had intoned, quoting the Psalms. The right hand of the Lord does valiantly. The message was clear: the right hand was favored, a symbol of strength and divine blessing. In contrast, the left hand carried a less favorable connotation, often linked to judgment or lesser status. At the Last Judgment, the sheep are placed at the right hand, the goats at the left. Could being left-handed then be seen as a mark of spiritual deficiency? You shake your head, dismissing the notion. Brother Cedric is as devout as any monk here, his faith unwavering. Yet you've heard the whispers some view. His left-handedness with suspicion, murmuring about unnatural tendencies or a predisposition to temptation. A left-handed novice's journey. You remember when Brother Cedric first arrived at the monastery, a young novice eager to serve. The other monks had watched him warily, especially when he reached for the bread with his left hand during meals. There were murmurs about correcting his habits, training him to use his right hand instead. Such efforts echoed the broader medieval practice of forcing left-handed children to conform a habit rooted in the belief that the right hand was proper and pure. But Brother Cedric had resisted, quietly insisting that his left hand was a gift from God, not a curse. Over time, his talent for illumination, his ability to breathe life into sacred texts, won him a measure of acceptance. Still, the unease never fully faded. Even now as he works, you catch the occasional sidelong glance from his peers, a smudge of ink and a cluck of disapproval. As you ponder this, Brother Cedric accidentally brushes his sleeve across the wet ink, smudging a delicate border of curling vines. He sighs, reaching for a cloth to blot the mistake. The monk beside him, Brother Oswald, clucks his tongue disapprovingly. Careless, he mutters loud enough for others to hear. You wince, feeling a pang of sympathy. It's a small mishap, but in the monastery, even minor deviations are noted, magnified by the weight of tradition. Later, during a break, you approach Brother Cedric. Your work is beautiful, you say, gesturing to the manuscript. The colors are so vivid. He smiles, a hint of pride in his eyes. Thank you. It's a labor of love. You hesitate, then ask, do you ever wish you were right-handed? It might make things easier. He chuckles softly. Sometimes, yes. But this is how God made me. I can't change that. His words linger with you. Perhaps left-handedness is simply another variation in God's creation, no better or worse than any other trait. Yet not everyone shares this view. Legends and superstitions. You recall a story about a left-handed monk from centuries past, Brother Ambrose, whose tale has grown into monastery legend. He was said to have created a batch of cheese that turned sour overnight, a disaster some blamed on his use of his left hand to stir the curds. The story evolved over time. Some claimed the cheese emitted a foul odor that drove rats from the cellar, while others insisted it glowed ominously in the dark, a sign of divine displeasure. It became a cautionary tale, a warning against defying the natural order. Yet there were counter-narratives too, whispers of left-handed monks who possessed unique gifts. One legend spoke of a left-handed abbot who could heal the sick, with a touch of his left hand, channeling divine power in unexpected ways. These conflicting tales fascinate you. Was left-handedness a curse or a blessing? Scholarly debate and practical challenges? Scholars have long debated the matter. Some medieval theologians saw left-handedness as a test of faith, a challenge to overcome through discipline. Others viewed it as a mark of distinction, a calling to a different path. The abbot himself has weighed in, suggesting that it's not the hand that matters, but the heart. God judges intent, not form, he often says. Practically, though, left-handed monks like Brother Cedric face daily hurdles. The monastery's tool squills, knives, even the layout of the scriptorium desks are designed for right-handed use. Cedric has adapted tilting his parchment or holding his quill at an odd angle, but it's a constant negotiation with a world built against him. And then there's the cheese. Superstitions abound that left-handed monks can taint the monastery's prized product, causing it to spoil or lose its flavor. It's an irrational fear, yet deeply ingrained a quirk of monastic life you find both amusing and perplexing. A quest for answers. As the day draws to a close, you decide to investigate further. Tomorrow, you'll visit the cheese room and see if there's any truth to these tales of cursed curds. For now, you join the other monks for Vespers, the evening prayers. The chapel glows with the golden light of sunset, and the air carries the scent of incense. You bow your head, letting the chants wash over you, and feel a sense of peace. Later, as you lie in bed, you think about Brother Cedric and the left-handed monks who came before him. Their stories are part of this place, woven into its stone walls and sacred routines. Perhaps in understanding their struggles, you'll uncover the secret behind the monastery's cheese, and why it's feared to be different when touched by a left hand. You wake to the faint scent of wood smoke, and the distant clang of the monastery's bell, its echo rolling through the stone corridors like a whisper from the past. The air is cool, tinged with the earthy dampness of morning, and you can almost taste the mist clinging to the hills outside. Today, though, your mind isn't on the prayers or the milking it's on the cheese room, that quiet sanctuary of curds and whey where something as simple as a left hand could unravel centuries of tradition. You've been thinking about it ever since Brother Anselm's stories, those half-whispered tales of spoiled batches and cursed wheels. Why, you wonder, does the left hand carry such weight here? Why does it feel like the monastery holds its breath when Brother Cedric steps into the dairy, his left hand hovering over the cauldron like a storm cloud? The answer, you suspect, lies somewhere between superstition and survival. In a world where every harvest, every meal is a gift from Godor, a test of faith, the smallest deviation can feel like a crack in the divine order. And in the Middle Ages, left-handedness was one such crack. You recall the abbot's words from yesterday's lesson? The right hand of the Lord is exalted. It's a phrase that echoes through the monastery, woven into every prayer, every gesture. The right hand blesses, anoints, breaks bread. The left, it's the hand of judgment of lesser things. In Scripture, the goats are set on the left at the last judgment the sinners cast aside. It's no wonder, then, that a left-handed monk might be seen as well a little off. But it's not just theology. There's a practical side to it, too. Cheesemaking is a craft, a delicate dance of timing and technique. The tools, the wooden paddles, the metal skimmers, the wicker molds are all designed for right-handed use. You've seen Brother Cedric struggle with them, his left hand fumbling where a right hand would glide. It's not that he's unskilled, it's that the world was not built for him. And in a monastery where precision is next to godliness, that awkwardness can look like a flaw. You think back to a story Brother Anselm told you about a left-handed novice named Brother Alaric. It was years ago before your time, but the tale's still fresh. Alaric was eager, devout, but hopelessly clumsy with his left hand. One day, while stirring the curds, he knocked over the cauldron, spilling a week's worth of milk across the dairy floor. The other monks muttered about bad omens, and soon after a batch of cheese turned sour, its rind cracking like old leather. They blamed Alaric, of course, said his left hand had cursed the batch. He was reassigned to the gardens far from the cheese room, and the story stuck. It's a silly tale, you know. Cheese spoils for 100 reasons. Bad milk, too much heat, not enough salt. But in a place where faith and fear walk hand in hand, it's easy to point fingers at the unusual. And left-handedness with its ancient baggage was the perfect scapegoat. You decide to dig deeper. After morning prayers, you slip into the library, its air thick with the scent of old parchment and beeswax. The shelves sag under the weight of leather-bound tomes, their spines cracked and faded. You find a dusty volume on medieval superstitions, its pages brittle as autumn leaves. Flipping through, you land on a section about hands. It's fascinating and a little ridiculous. The left hand, it says, was once thought to be controlled by the devil himself. In some villages, left-handed children were forced to eat with their right hands, their left arms bound behind their backs. There were even tales of left-handed witches casting spells with a flick of their fingers, their power drawn from the sinister side. You snort, imagining Brother Cedric as some dark sorcerer conjuring storms with a cheese paddle. But the book also mentions something more practical. In many trades, left-handed workers were seen as liabilities. Blacksmiths, weavers, even scribes using the left hand could disrupt the workflow, especially in communal settings like monasteries. And in cheesemaking, where timing is everything, a left-handed monk might stir the curds too slowly or press the wheels unevenly. It wasn't malice, it was mechanics. You close the book, your mind buzzing. So the fear of left-handed cheesemaking was a mix of old superstitions and real-world challenges. But was there any truth to it? Did left-handed monks actually produce worse cheese, or was it all in their heads? Scholars still argue about it, you know. Some say the superstitions were baseless, a product of ignorance and fear. Others point to studies showing that left-handed people might process tasks differently, which could affect their performance in certain crafts. There's even a theory that left-handedness was linked to creativity, making left-handed monks more likely to experiment with new techniques. Sometimes to disastrous effect. You chuckle thinking of Brother Alaric's spilled cauldron. Maybe he was just ahead of his time trying to innovate. Or maybe he was just clumsy. Later in the cheese room, you watch Brother Cedric work. As careful and methodical, his left hand moving with a grace that defies the whispers. The curds are perfect, the whey draining clear and steady. You help him press the wheels, the wooden molds creaking under the weight, and you can't help but admire his skill. If there's a curse here, you think it's in the minds of those who doubt him. As the day fades, you join the monks for vespers, the chapel's candles flickering like tiny stars. The chants rise and fall, a soothing wave of sound, and you feel the tension ease from your shoulders. Tomorrow you'll ask Brother Cedric about his own experiences. Maybe there's a story there, something to unravel. For now, though, you let the mystery rest content to drift on the current of the monastery's quiet rhythm. You wake to the deep toll of the monastery bell, its echo rolling through the stone corridors like a whisper from the past. The air is crisp, carrying the scent of wood smoke and damp earth, and you can almost taste the mist clinging to the hills outside. As you make your way to the cheese room, your mind drifts to the stories you've heard, tales of left-handed monks and their struggles with cheese making. These are the stories that linger in the monasteries, shadows passed down through generations like secret recipes. One story stands out: Brother Alaric, a left-handed monk from centuries ago. According to legend, Alaric was a skilled cheesemaker, but his left-handedness led him to stir the curds differently from the other monks. Instead of the usual clockwise motion, he stirred counterclockwise, creating a gentle whirlpool in the cauldron. This unique technique produced a cheese with a marbled appearance and a rich, creamy flavor, unlike anything the monastery had ever tasted. At first, the other monks were skeptical, whispering about his unnatural methods. But when they tasted the cheese, their doubts melted away. It became a favorite among the monks and the local villagers, and Alaric's left-handed stirring was celebrated as a gift rather than a curse. They say you could smell the tangy richness of his cheese from the cloister, a warm promise of something extraordinary. Not all stories of left-handed monks end so sweetly, though. Some tales speak of monks who were shunned or even punished for their perceived clumsiness. In a world where tools, wooden paddles, iron skimmers, even the layout of the cheese room were designed for right-handed use, left-handed monks often struggled to keep up. Their awkwardness was seen as a flaw, a disruption in the sacred rhythm of monastic life. Picture a young novice, his left hand slipping on a paddle, sending curds sloshing over the cauldron's edge, while the other monks mutter under their breath. It's a small chaos, but in a place where order reigns, it's enough to mark him as an outsider. Then there's Brother Cedric, a left-handed monk whose story is etched into the monastery's lore. When he first arrived, his peers mocked him for his fumbling hands, snickering as he wrestled with tools that didn't fit his grip. But Cedric was stubborn as stone. He spent long nights in the cheese room, the air thick with the warm, sour scent of fermenting milk, experimenting, until he found his own way. Like Alaric, he stirred counterclockwise, but he added his own twist, kneading the curds with a rhythm that coaxed out a texture both firm and velvety. The result was a cheese that sang on the tongue, a deep, earthy flavor with a hint of nuttiness. At first the monks scoffed, but one taste silenced them. The abbot himself declared it a marvel, and soon villagers were trekking up the muddy hill paths, coins jingling in their pockets just for a wedge of Cedric's creation. Cedric's path wasn't easy, though. Before the monastery, he'd faced cruelty in his village. Left-handed children were branded as troublemakers, their hands bound behind their backs or struck with switches to correct them. The villagers whispered that left-handedness was a mark of the devil, a superstition that clung like damp rot. When Cedric arrived at the monastery, he carried that shame in his shoulders, but he also carried a quiet fire. The cheese room became his refuge, a place where his left hand wasn't a curse, but a tool of transformation. Over time, his cheese didn't just win over the monks, it rewrote his story. There's another tale too, one that's half lost to time but still whispered on cold nights. Brother Dunstan, a wiry left-handed monk with a mop of red hair, didn't set out to be a cheesemaker. He was a scribe by trade, but a clumsy spill of ink left hand, of course, earned him a stint in the cheese room as punishment. At first he was hopeless, dropping molds and curdling milk too soon. The other monks rolled their eyes, but Dunstan had a knack for noticing things. He saw how the curds clumped differently depending on the weather, how a little extra pressure changed the texture. One damp spring, he pressed a batch too hard by mistake, and the result was a dense golden cheese that cracked with flavor sharp and bright, like a shout in the silence. The monks couldn't get enough, and Dunstan, the accidental cheesemaker, found his place among them. As you work in the cheese room, the stories hum around you. The slosh of the curds, the creak of the press, the faint tang hanging in the air, it's a living echo of those left-handed monks. Were they really cursed, or was it just fear and habit that held them back? Scholars argue over it still. In medieval times, left-handedness was tangled up in superstition. Some saw it as a devil's trick, others just a practical nuisance in a right-handed world. But here in the monastery, those differences became something more. Alaric, Cedric, Dunstan, they turned their struggles into strengths, leaving behind cheeses that still flavor the monastery's history. You finish your work, hands sticky with whey, and feel a thread tying you to those monks of old. The monastery is a tapestry of tradition and change, where even the oddest threads weave something beautiful. You think back to the great cheese miracle when the monks' wheels of cheese rolled down the hill to feed a starving village. It's a tale of survival, but it's also a bridge to know a time when left-handed quirks aren't feared but cherished. Next, we'll wander into how the monks shared their cheese with the world, beyond the walls, offering hospitality and hope to travelers and the poor. You wake to the gentle hum of the monastery, the air thick with the scent of wood smoke and the faint tang of aging cheese. The stone walls are cool to the touch, and the morning light spills through the narrow windows, casting long shadows across the floor. Today, though, your thoughts aren't on the cheese room or the milking shed. They're on the travelers who arrived late last night, their weary faces lit by the flicker of the hearth as they huddled in the guest hall. You've seen their kind before: pilgrims, merchants, the occasional beggar drawn to the monasteries, promise of shelter and sustenance. And of course, a wedge of the monastery's famous cheese. In medieval times, monasteries were more than just places of prayer and contemplation. They were beacons of hospitality, offering food, rest, and care to anyone who knocked on their gates. It was a sacred duty rooted in the teachings of Christ. I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. The monks took this to heart, and cheese, nutritious, portable, and long-lasting, was the perfect gift for those in need. You make your way to the guest hall, the scent of fresh bread and warm ale mingling with the earthy aroma of the stone floors. The travelers are gathered around a long wooden table, their faces softer now, less lined with worry. A monk moves among them, offering bowls of pottage and thick slices of bread, but it's the cheese that catches your eye. Wheels of it, golden and firm, are stacked on a side table, their rinds glistening in the morning light. Each guest receives a generous wedge wrapped in cloth for the road ahead. You watch as a young pilgrim, his cloak tattered and his boots worn thin, takes a bite. His eyes widen and a smile spreads across his face. "This is the best cheese I've ever tasted," he says, his voice thick with awe. You can't help but grin. It's the same reaction every time. The monastery's cheese isn't just food. It's a taste of home, a reminder that even in the harshest of times there's goodness to be found. But it's not just about hospitality. Cheese was a form of charity, a way for the monks to share their bounty with the wider world. In the Middle Ages, poverty was rampant, and monasteries often served as the social safety net of their day. They fed the hungry, clothed the naked, and cared for the sick, all while tending to their spiritual duties. Cheese, with its high nutritional value and long shelf life, was an ideal way to help those in need. You recall a story Brother Anselm told you about a particularly harsh winter when the village below the monastery was struck by famine. The crops had failed and the villagers were starving. The monks, though their own stores were low, opened their cheese cellars and distributed wheels to every household. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep the village alive until spring. The villagers never forgot it, and to this day they speak of the monks' generosity with reverence. There's a quirky side to this charity, too. You've heard tales of monks slipping extra wedges into the packs of travelers they particularly like, or in one case hiding a small wheel in the cloak of a pompous noble who'd been rude to the abbot. The noble, unaware of the gift, rode off with the cheese tucked against his back, only to discover it later, much to his confusion. The monks chuckled about it for weeks, imagining the noble's bewilderment as he pulled a perfectly aged cheese from his cloak. But cheese wasn't just for the needy. It was also a diplomatic tool, a way for the monastery to curry favor with local lords and bishops. A well-timed gift of cheese could smooth over tensions, secure a favorable ruling, or even win a patron for the monastery's latest building project. You picture the abbot, his face solemn, presenting a wheel of the finest cheddar to a visiting bishop, the air thick with the scent of wax and herbs. It's a small gesture, but in the intricate dance of medieval politics, it's a move that could tip the scales. As you help clear the table, you think about the travelers who've passed through these halls. Each one leaves with a story, a memory of the monastery's warmth and generosity, and each one carries a piece of the monastery with them, wrapped in cloth and tucked into their packs. It's a quiet kind of evangelism, spreading the word of the monks. Good works one wedge at a time. Later, as you stand in the cheese room, the air heavy with the sour tang of fermenting curds, you feel a sense of pride. The cheese you're making isn't just for the monks or the villagers. It's for the world beyond the walls, a gift to those who need it most. You think back to the great cheese miracle when the monks' wheels rolled down the hill to feed a starving village. It's a story of survival, but it's also a testament to the power of charity, of sharing what you have, no matter how little. Next, we'll explore how the monks' cheese-making techniques evolved over time, leading to innovations that would shape the future of cheese production. You stand in the cheese room, the air thick with the tangy scent of aging wheels. The stone walls are cool to the touch, and the faint hum of the monastery's daily rhythm seeps through the cracks, monks chanting, bells tolling, the soft clatter of wooden pails. You think back to the travelers who left this morning, their packs a little heavier with the monastery's gift of cheese. It's a small act, but one that ripples through the community, binding the monks to the world outside. You can still see their wine-chapped faces breaking into grateful smiles. Hear the murmured blessings as they trudged off into the misty dawn. It's moments like these that make the long hours in the dairy worthwhile, your hands still sticky with whey, your tunic dusted with salt. But charity comes at a cost. The monastery's cheese stores are dwindling faster than they can be replenished. You've noticed the shelves growing bare, the once abundant stacks shrinking with every departing guest. The abbot has noticed too, his brow furrowing during his last inspection. He's tasked the monks with finding ways to increase production without sacrificing the quality that makes their cheese a quiet legend. It's a tall order, but one that sparks a flicker of excitement in the cheese room. The monks are nothing if not resourceful. Centuries of prayer and labor have honed their knack for turning scarcity into abundance. You can feel the buzz in the air, a mix of anticipation and determination. The monks huddle together near the vats, whispering ideas, their faces lit with the glow of possibility, their sandals scuffing the worn stone floor. You watch as Brother Cedric, the left-handed monk, stirs a cauldron of curds with his usual counterclockwise motion. He's always been a bit of a maverick, his odd habits earning him fond chuckles from the others. Today, he's trying something new, adding a handful of wild thyme to the mix. The herb's sharp, earthy scent cuts through the dairies, richness curling up in green tendrils of fragrance that tickle your nose. You wonder if this could be the next great innovation, a flavor to set tongues, wagging from here to the next valley. Brother Cedric's eyes are bright with focus, his left hand steady as he sprinkles the thyme into the cauldron, the curds bubbling softly beneath his wooden spoon. You can almost taste the potential in the air, a hint of something wild and new mingling with the familiar creaminess. Meanwhile, Brother Anselm is tinkering with the aging process down in the cellars. He's convinced that burying the cheese wheels in the monastery's cool, damp undercroft will coax out deeper, richer flavors. He's already dug a small pit and lined it with straw, his tonsured head bobbing with enthusiasm as he explains his theory. You help him lower a wheel into the pit, the earth swallowing it like a secret kept between you and the stone walls. Brother Anselm's hands are caked with dirt, his fingernails black with soil, but his smile is wide as he pats the ground smooth. "Just wait," he says, his voice a conspiratorial whisper. "This will be something special." You can't help but grin back, caught up in his quiet fervor. Not all experiments are successful, of course. You recall the time Brother Oswald, ever impatient, tried to speed up the aging process by leaving a batch of cheese near the kitchen hearth. The result was a melted, gooey mess that smelled like a barnyard after a rainstorm and tasted even worse. The monks still tease him about it, calling it Oswald's folly in hushed laughing tones over their evening broth. You can still hear their mirth echoing through the refectory, a chorus of good-natured ribbing that makes the stone halls feel a little warmer. Brother Oswald takes it in stride, though his cheeks flushing pink, with a mix of embarrassment and amusement as he vows to stick to milking the cows next time. But there are triumphs too. Brother Cedric's time-infused cheese is a hit, its flavor complex and lingering a dance of herbaceous bite and mellow creaminess on the tongue. The villagers can't get enough of it, their eyes lighting up when they spot it at the monastery gate. Soon, other monasteries are sending letters sealed with wax and scribbled with eager questions about the recipe. You've watched Brother Cedric unroll the parchment, his left hand tracing the words as he beams with pride. What was once a quirk is now a symbol of innovation, a small rebellion against the ordinary that's paid off in spades. Brother Anselm's buried cheese, meanwhile, emerges from the earth after weeks of patient waiting, its rind as hard as stone, and its flavor so intense it brings tears to your eyes. It's not for the faint of heart, sharp and earthy, with a tang that lingers like a memory, but it's a testament to the monk's ingenuity. You take a small bite, the taste exploding on your tongue, a mix of damp soil salt and something almost mystical, as if the cheese has absorbed the prayers chanted above it. It's like tasting the monastery itself, its history and its secrets pressed into every crumbly bite. The other monks gather round, nodding in approval, though Brother Oswald wrinkles his nose and mutters something about sticking to plain whey next time. These innovations don't stay within the monastery walls for long. Traveling monks carry the recipes and techniques to other abbeys, their sandals kicking up dust on winding roads as they share tales of time and buried wheels. Pilgrims too spread the word to their home villages, their voices buzzing with excitement as they describe the monastery's marvels over flickering hearth fires. Before long, the monastery's cheese is famous far and wide, a symbol of both spiritual devotion and culinary excellence. You imagine the cheese wheels journeying across the countryside, tucked into saddlebags and rattling carts, each one a small ambassador of the monks, craft a testament to their quiet, stubborn creativity. As you help stack the newly pressed wheels, their surfaces still soft and pale, you realize that the monks' experiments are more than just a way to meet demand. They're a form of prayer, a way to honor God's bounty by pushing the boundaries of what's possible with milk and time. And who knows? Maybe one of these innovations will change the world of cheese forever. You think back to the great cheese miracle from years past when the monk stores saved the village from famine, still told with reverence around winter fires. It's a reminder that even the smallest acts of creativity, like a pinch of thyme or a wheel in the dirt, can ripple outward in ways you can't yet see. Next, we'll explore how the monks' cheese-making techniques influenced the wider community, shaping the economy and culture of the medieval world. The sun dips lower now, casting long shadows across the monastery's stone walls. You linger by the cart with Brother Anselm, the last of the market crowd trickling away. The air carries the faint clatter of wooden clogs on cobblestone and the soft bleating of goats being herded home. You can still smell the cheese, its rich, nutty aroma clinging to your hands from the day's work. It's a scent that tells a story, one that stretches beyond the monastery's gates and into the heart of the village. You picture the villagers in their thatched cottages tonight, gathered around rough-hewn tables. They'll slice into the monastery's cheese, its pale flesh crumbling under their knives, and pair it with coarse bread and a mug of ale. It's a simple meal, but it's one that binds them to this place, to the monks, to each other. The cheese isn't just food, it's a currency of trust, a promise kept between the monastery and the people. In years when the harvest failed, or the river flooded, it was the monks' wheels that filled empty bellies. Their generosity, a quiet anchor in the storm. And oh, how the village has grown because of it. You've heard the elders talk of the old days before the monks perfected their craft. Back then, the market was a sleepy affair, just a handful of stalls with wilted greens and a few sour apples. Now it's a riot of life. You've seen weavers from the next valley, haggling over bolts of cloth, their fingers stained with dye, and blacksmiths, trading iron tools for a taste of the monk's latest batch. The cheese has turned this little corner of the world into a crossroads, a place where paths and fortunes meet. It's not all smooth sailing, though. You've caught snippets of conversation at the market grumbles from a merchant who swears a rival monastery's cheese tastes suspiciously similar. They've pilfered the recipe. He mutters, his beard bristling with indignation. You wonder if he's right. The monks guard their methods like a sacred relic, but secrets have a way of slipping through the cracks. Brother Cedric once joked that the only way to keep the recipe safe would be to bury it with the cheese, and even then Old Man Hargrove might dig it up by mistake. Speaking of Hargrove, his soggy cheese fiasco isn't the only tale that gets the village chuckling. There's the story of Widow Mabel, who decided the monk's cheese needed a woman's touch. She marched into the dairy one morning, her apron starched stiff as a board, and demanded to add her secret ingredient, lavender. The monks humored her, blessed their patient souls, but the result was a wheel so floral it tasted like a garden gone rogue. Fit for bees, not people, Brother Anselm quipped, and Mabel's pride took a tumble. She still trades her honey at market, though, and you've seen her sneak a wink at Anselm when she thinks no one's looking. These little dramas play out against a bigger stage. The monk's cheese has woven a tapestry of cooperation, one that's held strong through feast and famine. You've watched the villagers pitch in during the busy season, hauling milk pails up the hill when the monks' hands are full. In return, the monks bless their fields and share tricks of the trade like how to spot the perfect moment to salt the curds. It's a partnership, a dance of give and take that keeps the community humming. But the music might be changing. You've noticed the carts leaving market heavier each week, the orders piling up faster than the monks can churn? The abbot's brow creases deeper these days, and you've heard him murmur about stretching too thin. The cheese that once saved the village might now strain the monastery's walls, more mouths to feed, more hands to work, more secrets to guard. And beyond the hills, there's talk of tax collectors sniffing around their ledgers, hungry for a cut of the profits. You shake your head, brushing off the worry for now. The cart's loaded, and Brother Anselm gives you a nod as you trudge back toward the dairy. The stars are peeking out pinpricks of light in the velvet sky. You hear the soft thud of a wheel settling into place, the creak of the gate as it swings shut. The day's done, and the monastery settles into its familiar quiet. Whatever comes next, you'll face it together. Monks, villagers, and that glorious golden cheese. You linger in the cellars a moment longer, the cool air brushing your skin, the faint hum of the monastery above muffled by the thick stone walls. The cheese wheels surround you, each one a silent witness to the monk's labor and care. But as you run your fingers along a wax-coated rind, you realize there's more to these cheeses than just sustenance. In medieval times, cheese was a treasure, a symbol woven into the fabric of monastic life, and you're about to discover why. Back in the scriptorium, you've seen the old manuscripts, their margins decorated with curling vines and tiny sketches of daily life. Among them, cheese appears more often than you'd expect. A wheel offered to a weary traveler, a gift to a visiting noble. A humble round, broken and shared during a feast. It wasn't just food. It was a currency of kindness, a way to show hospitality in a world where generosity could mean survival. You imagine the abbot presenting a perfectly aged wheel to a frostbitten pilgrim, the cheese's rich, nutty scent warming the air as it sliced open. Take this, he might say, and remember us in your prayers. The monks saw cheese as a gift from the land, a product of their cows, their pastures, and their hands working in harmony with God's creation. It was a small miracle of transformation. Milk turned into something lasting, something that could sustain them through lean winters or unexpected famines. You've heard Brother Anselm call it the patience of the earth made edible, and there's truth in that. Down here in the cellars where the wheels age slowly, you can almost feel that patience seeping into the stones. Symbolically, cheese carried even deeper meaning. In sermons, the monks sometimes likened it to faith, something that starts soft and fragile but grows stronger with time and care. A well-stored wheel, its rind thick and protective, its interior rich and flavorful, was proof of diligence and trust in the process. You can picture Brother Oswald nodding sagely as he turns a wheel, murmuring, like us, it must endure trials to become its best self. It's a quirky thought, but it fits. The cheese, like the monks, is shaped by its environment, its challenges, and the hands that guide it. Culturally, cheese was a bridge between the monastery and the outside world. You've learned that the monks traded it with nearby villages, swapping wheels for grain, or wool, strengthening ties with their neighbors. During festivals, they'd bring out their finest batches, cheeses aged for months or even years, their flavors sharp and complex. A point of pride for the community. You can almost hear the chatter of the villagers as they sample a crumbly wedge, their voices rising in approval. No one makes it like the brothers do. It was a reputation, hard-earned, built on the careful storage techniques you've seen firsthand, the cool cellars, the wax coatings, the vigilant cats. There's a story you love, one the monks tell with a twinkle in their eye. Years ago, during a particularly harsh winter, a rival monastery sent a messenger begging for aid. The abbot, rather than hoarding their stores, loaded a cart with cheese dozens of wheels, each one a masterpiece of preservation. The messenger returned months later with a letter of thanks, and a small lumpy cheese of their own, making a token of gratitude. It wasn't as good as yours, the monks admit with a chuckle, but the gesture cemented a friendship that lasted generations. You can't help but smile at the thought cheese as a peacemaker, a diplomat in rind and wax. Scholars note that cheese's role in medieval life went beyond the practical. Some suggest it was a status symbol. Monasteries with thriving cheese cellars were seen as prosperous, blessed by divine favor. Others argue it was a quiet rebellion against the austerity of monastic rules, a way to savor a little earthly pleasure within the bounds of piety. You wonder about that as you stand here, the earthy aroma filling your lungs. Is this why Brother Cedric sneaks a sliver now and then, his face lighting up with mischief? Perhaps cheese in its humble way was both sustenance and subversion. As you climb the cellar stairs, leaving the wheels to their quiet maturation, you feel a connection to this legacy. The cheese isn't just stored here, it's celebrated, revered, a thread that ties the monks to their faith, their land, and their neighbors. It's a reminder that even the simplest things can carry profound meaning if you know where to look. Next, we'll step into the bustling kitchen where the monks turn their stored cheese into meals that warm both body and soul. You stand in the kitchen now, the warmth of the hearth wrapping around you like a soft cloak. The air is thick with the scent of melting cheese, its golden edges bubbling in an iron pan, mingling with the earthy aroma of fresh baked bread, cooling on the wooden table. The monastery's rhythm hums in the background, monk sandals scuffing the stone floors, the distant chime of a bell. But here in this moment, it's the cheese that holds your attention. It's more than just a meal. It's a symbol, a thread woven through the monastery's life, tying together faith, community, and the quiet joys of the everyday. Cheese as transformation. You think back to the cellars where the wheels age in the cool dark, their rinds hardening like armor. It's a slow transformation, one that mirrors the monk's own spiritual journey. Just as milk, fragile and fleeting, becomes something lasting through care and patience, so too do the monks strive to transform their souls. Each day they rise before dawn, their prayers a steady rhythm, their hands moving through tasks that shape both the monastery and their inner lives. The cheese is a quiet testament to that process, a reminder that growth takes time, that strength comes from endurance. You can almost hear Brother Anselm's voice low and steady as he turns a wheel in the cellar. Like us, it must weather the seasons to find its true flavor. A bond of community. But cheese is more than a metaphor for faith. It's a bond that ties the community together. You've seen it in the dairy where monks work side by side, their hands moving in unison. As they stir the curds, their voices mingling in soft conversation. The air is warm with the steam of fresh milk, the scent of herbs thyme perhaps, or a pinch of lavender floating through the room. It's a shared labor, each monk a thread in the tapestry, their differences smoothed by the common goal. Even Brother Cedric, with his left-handed quirks, finds his place here, his counterclockwise, stirring a small rebellion that's become part of the monastery's charm. The cheese they make isn't just a product. It's a piece of their collective soul, a gift they offer to each other and the world beyond the walls. A taste of rebellion, and oh, the world beyond. For all its practicality, cheese was also a quiet rebellion against the monastery's austerity. The rules were strict, meals were simple, pleasures few, but a sliver of cheese could be a fleeting comfort, a taste of the world's richness. You picture a monk weary from a long night of prayer, sneaking a bite in the dim glow of the scriptorium, the creamy texture melting on his tongue like a secret kept between him and the night. It's a small indulgence, but in a life of discipline, it's a reminder that joy can be found in the humblest of things. Historical threads. In medieval times, cheese wove its way into the broader tapestry of life, serving as a currency of its own. You've heard tales of the abbot presenting a massive wheel to a visiting bishop, its rind waxed to a golden sheen, its weight a testament to the monastery's prosperity. The bishop's eyes would widen his fingers, brushing the smooth surface, and you can imagine the abbot's quiet satisfaction as he murmured a small token of our devotion. It was diplomacy and dairy form a way to secure goodwill or soften a hard bargain. Sometimes the monks even paid their taxes in cheese cartloads of it, trundling down the hill to the local lord's manor. Each wheel a grudging acknowledgement of earthly authority. Feasts and celebration feasts brought that joy to the surface. During harvest festivals or holy days, the monks would break out their finest wheelsage to perfection, their flavors sharp and complex. You can almost see the refectory transform the long tables, laden with bread ale and platters of cheese, the air filled with laughter, and the clink of mugs. The monks, usually so solemn, would let their guard down their faces, softening as they shared stories and songs. It was a time when the monastery felt less like a fortress of faith and more like a home bound by the simple pleasure of good food and good company. A scholarly debate. Scholars still debate the role of cheese in medieval culture. Some see it as a symbol of divine providence, a gift from the land blessed by God. Others argue it was a marker of status monasteries. With thriving cheese sellers were seen as favored, their larders a sign of heavenly approval. And then there are those who view it as a quiet act of defiance, a way for the monks to carve out a sliver of earthly delight in a life otherwise dedicated to the spirit. You smile at the thought, wondering which camp Brother Cedric would fall into his left hand, cradling a wedge of time-infused cheese like a treasure. Back to the kitchen. As you watch the cheese sizzle in the pan, its edges crisping to a golden brown, you feel a connection to this legacy. The monks' cheese isn't just stored in the cellars, it's etched into their history, a symbol of transformation community, and the small, stubborn joys that make life worth living. You take a deep breath, the scent of melting cheese filling your lungs, and feel a quiet contentment settle over you. It's a simple thing, but in this moment, it's everything. Next, step into the bustling marketplace where the monk's cheese becomes a prized commodity shaping the economy and culture of the medieval world. You stand in the cheese room, the air still thick with the scent of aging wheels, but something feels different. The hum of activity has quieted the once bustling space, now echoing with a stillness that wasn't there before. The wooden shelves, once stacked high with golden rounds, now hold fewer cheeses, their surfaces gathering a thin layer of dust. You run your fingers along a wicker mold, its weave worn smooth from years of use and wonder, when at last cradled a fresh batch of curds. The monastery's rhythm is shifting, and with it the heartbeat of the cheese room seems to slow. It's not just your imagination. Over the past few months, the monks have been talking about it in hushed tones, so the dairy feels emptier, how the milk pails aren't as full as they used to be. Brother Anselm, with his usual knack for noticing things, mentioned it first. The cows aren't giving as much, he said one morning, his brow furrowed as he stirred a cauldron of curds. And the villagers, they're buying less. You've seen it too, the market carts returning with unsold wheels, their rind still glistening but unwanted. The villagers, once eager for the monastery's cheese, now seem distracted, their coins spent elsewhere. You've heard the whispers of change. The world beyond the monastery walls is shifting, and it's starting to seep through the cracks. The rise of commercial cheese production has brought new players to the market merchants with carts full of cheaper, faster-made cheeses, their flavors bland, but their prices tempting. The villagers, always practical, are drawn to the lower cost, even if it means sacrificing the rich, nutty taste of the monks' carefully aged wheels. You can't blame them. Times are hard, and a penny saved is a penny for the hearth. But it stings knowing that the monastery's cheese, once a prized treasure, is now competing with pale imitations. It's not just the economy, though. There are rumblings within the monastery itself. The new abbot, a stern man with a fondness for reform, has been pushing for changes. He speaks of efficiency of focusing on prayer over labor of letting the outside world handle the earthly tasks. Our hands are meant for the scriptures, not the cheese press, he declared at a recent chapter, meeting his voice sharp as a blade. You felt the room tense, the older monks shifting uncomfortably on their benches. For them, cheese making isn't just work, it's a form of worship, a way to honor God's gifts. But the abbot's words linger, and you've noticed fewer monks assigned to the dairy, their places taken by hired hands from the village. Then there are the external pressures. The region has been restless with rumors of war flickering like distant lightning. Armies march through the countryside, their boots trampling fields and their appetites devouring stores. Last month, a band of soldiers camped near the monastery, and though they were polite enough, their presence was a drain. The abbot, ever the diplomat, sent them off with a cartload of cheese, a gesture of goodwill, but one that left the cellars noticeably emptier. You remember the weight of those wheels as you helped load them, each one a piece of the monastery's heart, given away to keep the peace. The monks are adapting. Of course, they always do, Brother Cedric. Ever the innovator has been experimenting with smaller batches, trying to make each wheel last longer. He's even toyed with new flavors. Adding a pinch of pepper or a handful of dried nettletoe make the cheese stand out in a crowded market. You've tasted his creations, the sharp bite of pepper, cutting through the creamy base, and while it's intriguing, you're not sure it's enough to turn the tide. The villagers are loyal, but loyalty has its limits when coins are scarce. The community feels the strain too. The villagers, once bound to the monastery by shared labor and mutual aid, now seem distant. You've seen it in their faces at market-worried lines etched deeper, their chatter quieter, their laughter rarer. You've heard them talk of moving away, seeking better prospects in the growing towns, where the air smells of opportunity and the streets buzz with trade. The monastery, once the heart of the region, now feels like a relic, a stone giant slowly sinking into the earth. Yet even in decline, the monastery spirit endures. The monks still gather in the cheese room, their hands moving with the same care, their voices humming the old chants as they work. They share stories of better days of the great cheese miracle when their wheels saved the village from famine, or of Brother Cedric's left-handed stirring, which became legend. These stories are more than memories. They're a tether to the past, a reminder that the monastery's roots run deep, even as its branches wither. You find comfort in that. The cheese may be fewer, the wheels smaller, but each one carries the weight of tradition, a testament to the monk's resilience. You think of the cellars still cool and dim, the remaining wheels, aging gracefully, their rinds thick with stories. Perhaps in time the demand will return, or perhaps the monastery will find new ways to thrive. You've heard whispers of a new trade wool, perhaps, or mead, but for now the cheese remains a symbol of endurance in an uncertain world. As you stand in the quiet of the cheese room, the scent of aging wheels wrapping around you like a memory, you feel a quiet hope. The monastery has weathered storms before plagues, wars, famines, and yet it stands. The cheese, too, will endure, even if only in the village's hearths and the monks' memories. You think of the travelers who still stop by, their eyes lighting up at the taste of the monastery's last batches of flavor they can find anywhere else. There's a magic in that, a kind of immortality. And so, as the sun dips low, casting golden light through the narrow windows, you take a deep breath and smile. The monastery's cheesemaking may be fading, but its spirit is woven into the land itself, a legacy that can't be measured in wheels or coins. You turn and head for the chapel, the scent of cheese still clinging to your hands, a reminder that some things, even in decline, never truly fade. As the sun sets on the monastery's golden age of cheese making, the quiet that settles over the stone walls is not one of loss, but of completion. You stand in the fading light, the air cool and still carrying the faint scent of wood smoke and the last whispers of the day's work. The cheese room, once a hive of activity, now rests its shelves, cradling the final wheels of the season. Yet in the stillness, there is a sense of fulfillment. The monks' labor has borne fruit, their cheese a testament to their faith, perseverance, and the quiet joys of a life well lived. You think back to the stories that have woven through the monastery's history. The great cheese miracle when the monks' wheels rolled down the hill to feed a starving village. Brother Cedric's left-handed stirring once feared, but now celebrated as a mark of innovation. The time-infused batches that brought a touch of the wild to the monastery's tables, these tales are more than memories. They're the heartbeat of this place, a reminder that even as the world changes, the spirit of the monastery endures woven into the very fabric of the land. Though the cheese room may grow still, the echoes of the monk's dedication linger in every wheel that graces a villager's table. Historians note that many of today's beloved cheese varieties like Gouda and Cheddar owe their origins to the innovations of medieval monks. Their techniques passed down through generations like a sacred recipe. And in the village below, a curious tradition persists each year on the feast of Saint Benedict. The villagers craft a giant cheese wheel, said to bring good fortune to all who taste it. It's a quirky nod to the past, a way to keep the monastery's legacy alive even as the world moves on. As for the decline of monastic cheese-making, scholars still argue whether it was due more to economic shifts or changes in religious practices. Some say the rise of commercial production and the lure of cheaper alternatives drew the villagers away, while others point to the monastery's own reforms, the abbot's insistence on prayer over labor. But perhaps it was simply time, the natural ebb and flow of history where one era gives way to another, leaving behind a legacy that can't be measured in wheels or coins. You walk through the cloister, now the stone arches casting long shadows in the twilight. The air is cool tinged with the scent of damp earth and the last blooms of autumn. The monastery is settling into night, the cows ambling back to the barn, their bells clinking softly, their udders emptied after the day's milking. In the chapel, the monks gather for Compaline, their voices rising in a final hymn, a gentle wave of sound that washes over the grounds. You pause by the cheese cellars, the door slightly ajar, and catch a glimpse of the remaining wheels, their rinds thick and golden, their flavors deepening with each passing hour. They are fewer now, but each one is a masterpiece, a silent promise of delights to come. The stars are emerging, twinkling like distant candles in the velvet sky. The monastery embraces the night, its stone walls holding centuries of stories of monks who toiled and prayed, who laughed and struggled, who made cheese not just to survive, but to thrive. You think of Brother Cedric, his left hand steady as he stirred the curds, his quiet defiance a thread in the monastery's tapestry. His story, like so many others, is etched into this place, a reminder that even the smallest acts, whether it's a pinch of thyme or a wheel buried in the earth, can leave a lasting mark. As you make your way to your cell, the monastery's rhythm slows the day's work done. The monks, their hearts light with the knowledge of a job well done, retire to their beds, the straw mattresses creaking under their weight. Outside, the fields lie quiet, the cows dreaming of green pastures, their gentle breaths mingling with the cool night air. The cheese sellers, too, are at rest, the wheels aging gracefully, their secrets locked in time. And so as the monastery drifts into slumber, you too can rest knowing that the stories of the past will always be there waiting to be rediscovered. The monastery's cheesemaking may have faded, but its spirit is woven into the land itself, a legacy that can't be measured in wheels or coins. It's a quiet end, yes, but one filled with peace, with the promise that some things, even in their stillness, never truly fade. The night deepens, the monastery wrapped in a blanket of silence, the kind that feels like a soft sigh after a long day. You lie in your narrow bed, the straw mattress cradling your tired body, the woolen blanket pulled up to your chin. The air is cool but not cold, carrying the faint scent of incense from the chapel and the earthy aroma of the fields beyond. Outside, the stars twinkle in the vast sky, their light filtering through the narrow window, casting a gentle glow on the stone walls. You close your eyes and the day's images drift through your mind, the golden wheels of cheese, the monk's steady hands, the quiet pride in their work. But now those images soften like a painting left in the sun, their edges blurring into something dreamlike. The monastery is at peace, its heartbeat slow and steady, a rhythm as old as the hills. In the distance, you hear the faint hoot of an owl, its call a lullaby for the night. The cows are asleep in the barn, their breaths deep and even their bells silent. The cheese sellers, too, are quiet, the wheels resting in the cool dark, their flavors deepening with each passing moment. It's a world suspended in time, a place where the past and present meet, where the simple act of making cheese becomes a story worth telling. As you drift closer to sleep, you feel a sense of calm wash over you like a warm tide, pulling you gently into the depths. The monastery stories are safe, tucked away in the stone walls in the hearts of those who remember. And as you surrender to the night, you know that tomorrow the sun will rise again, the bells will toll, and the monastery will continue its legacy as enduring as the stars above. Sweet dreams, dear listener, and may your nights be as peaceful as a monastery under the stars.